Well, well, well. We're back to Final Fantasy XIV. It has been a great pleasure to play this game, I've got to say. I've taken a 2 weeks break from progressing the story and letting Shadowbringers sink in a bit. What a damn journey. What a damn journey. And right now currently there's only one more expansion out for me to play. And that's kind of crazy to think about. It's not that much story left until I'm caught up to where everyone else has been for a while. And I'm really glad I took my time with this game. I really am. I feel like the best part of this game is the MSQ. And just I love the fact that what's it called? I love the fact that you don't have to rush through the thing to get to, like, the game. Like, the whole thing is the game. I just wish more MMOs were like that. But they're not. And I just gotta say I respect the hell out of the people who made this. Just, you know. Goddamn, what a thing they've put together. And today, we're actually not starting with the MSQ. I'm not about to dive into the MSQ head first, actually. We're going to be watching the Noclip Documentary 3-parter on Final Fantasy XIV that they made when Heavensward was about to come out. I've seen a few clips of this. I've never seen more than basically 3 minutes of this whole thing. So I'm really excited to see what they're gonna throw at us here. Because I've heard this thing is kind of crazy. But I only know some cliff notes. I don't know exactly what this whole thing is gonna tell me, you know? But I am gonna pull up a video on the side. Let's pause that. That I will be using later to prove a point. Yeah, because I know that's gonna be brought up in the actual video. Okay. And it's a good thing. It's it's a good thing. Don't you worry. Let's see, can I do... Okay, exits full screen. Okay. Good to know. Okay, yeah. I think we're... honestly, I think we're good to go. I think we're ready to dive into this. Honestly. So, you know, let's pause this background music and actually dive into the meat and potatoes of what we're gonna start this stream with. We are gonna dive into 5.4 later. I am playing that today. Don't you worry. But we're starting with this. Starting with the documentary. There should be subtitles. I hope my camera doesn't block any of the subtitles. Otherwise, I'm gonna move the cam. So don't worry about that. I'm gonna keep an eye on it. Yeah. Let's go. The Final Fantasy XIV Documentary Part 1 1.0 by Noclip. This is made by Noclip Video Game Documentaries, and I don't know if it's ran by Danny O'Dwyer, but I think it is. I think it's ran by Danny O'Dwyer. And yeah, I can't wait to see what kind of crazy information they actually pulled out of the devs on this. So let's get into it. Yes, I have the subtitles on. Don't you worry. Nice.
Square is buried deep into the culture of Japan. Originally a spin-off from Masafumi Miyamoto's father's Powerline construction firm, for over 30 years its games have helped power the rise of Japanese games development. There are no shortage of games that live under the Square Enix banner, but none as big as Final Fantasy. From our Western perspective, there's an air of mythos around the company. The accepted truth behind the series' title is that it was named Final Fantasy as it was Square's make-or-break game to avoid impending bankruptcy. And even if the real answer has more to do with creating an acronym that could be pronounced by both Eastern and Western audiences, it's that first story that gets told. That's the legacy of this series. Stories about adventures that get passed from generation to generation.
Wonderful game.
As nearby as the arcades of Akihabara and as far as the playgrounds of Europe. As the Final Fantasy series has moved from numeral to numeral, there have been high points and low. But with each new game comes the promise of a new story, a new myth. The story of what happened with Final Fantasy XIV is one such myth.
Oof.
What we know about it comes from old reviews, archived message board threads, and through conversations with those who were there. The reason for this is that the original version of Final Fantasy XIV doesn't exist anymore. Unlike the vast majority of other old games, there is no way of playing it. It was redacted, painted over. Where once stood a game that threatened to sink the Final Fantasy brand forever, now stands the second most popular subscription MMO in the world. And as the years pass us...
Well deserved. I'm just gonna throw that out there. Holy goddamn, well deserved second place. At this point, I think I honestly prefer it, but that's just personal opinion. I don't think there's much of a discussion for my point of view there. It's just, I prefer it at this point. This, however, this does not look great.
The myth of that original version and its incredible redemption story are at risk of disappearing. How did it all happen? How did the same studio that shipped a broken mess turn it all around in 2 years? Why did they make the decision to keep the old version
2 years? That's a crazy time span.
Still alive while secretly working on a brand new game? And how did they manage to make all of this, the redesign and rebirth, part of the game's lore? We knew this was a story worth telling, not only for those who were there to see it all go down, but for the millions of you who have never heard about this, who never knew the extraordinary lengths the development team went to save this game. So we did just that. Pack your bags, friends. Noclip is heading to Tokyo.
Nice touch with the old school effects and stuff going on. A little glitching and stuff. The death and rebirth of Final Fantasy XIV Online. Final Sanity is my autobiography. I really want to go to Japan. I was going to, but had to bow out, sadly. That's kind of crazy. Haven't seen the first cinematic in a while. Dalamud is crazy. Is that square? Oh man. Elf Gandalf. Gandalf. It's been a while.
Hello and welcome to Shinjuku, Tokyo.
Thank you, Danny.
Godzilla, restaurants full of dancing robots, and Square Enix, one of the most prolific video game companies in the world.
For the past few months, I've been playing catch-up with this story, playing the latest version of the game, talking to players, and watching community retrospective series like the Speakers Network's fantastic Fall and Rise of Final Fantasy XIV.
Oh yeah,
my goal to make
this came out, by the way, on June 23rd, 2017. Just for context.
sure we asked the right questions when we sat down with the team. During our time here in Shinjuku, we're going to talk to everyone from the engineers who worked on the original game to localization leads, community managers,
Koji.
and even the CEO of the company, all to allow them the
Really?
opportunity to tell their side
Yoshi
of this
P.
fascinating story.
The fall and rise of Final
Legend.
Fantasy XIV happened in real time in front of millions of people around the world. But we wanted to know about this story from an entirely new perspective, from inside the corporate machine that made it happen.
How'd
That
they-
led to its terrible launch and ultimately its incredible rebirth.
How they let you do that, though?
My name is Michael Christopher Koji Fonks.
Hell
I
yeah.
am the English localization lead for Final Fantasy XIV.
Now, let me just... It says Michael Christopher Koji Fox, English language localization. This is a crazy person right here, okay? You'd think this is a nice, mild-mannered man, when in fact he's a nice, mild-mannered man with a crazy side. You don't know what happens when this guy puts on a suit and a hat, okay? I will show you later, but goddamn. I have so much respect for this dude. He's living his dream. Good on him.
Being Koji, it's not something I gave myself. It's a name my father gave me. My father was stationed in Japan for 2 years.
I didn't know that.
When he was young. Went back to the States. My mom had me. They wanted to give me a Japanese name. The family was having none of that, so they kind of snuck it in the middle name. But then they always called me Koji, and so I guess the joke was on the rest of the family. You know, my dad being in the Navy,
It's kind of cool.
didn't really learn a lot about Japan other than he really liked Japan, but didn't learn any of the language. So I always knew that my name was Japanese, but beyond that, I really didn't know anything about Japan. But there was always that little seed in there. And then when I got into high school, there's a Japanese class, and I like games. Oh, they make games in Japan. Hey, let me study Japanese. If I study Japanese, I can play all those cool Japanese games that never come out over in America. And it kind of just snowballed from there. When I graduated from high school, I took a trip to Japan for 3 weeks, homestay type of thing, and I fell in love with it. And during that period, I got to visit a lot of schools. And a lot of English classes in those schools. And I thought, wow, I know English, I could do this, will be easy. It wasn't as easy as I thought it was going to be.
Would imagine.
But I studied a couple years at a university in America, then transferred over to Japan, started over 4 years at a university in Japan.
Wow.
Got my teaching license, and yeah.
It's hard work being a teacher.
This is a patient man. Let me tell you. I do not have his patience to just stay in school and keep grinding away at it. Goddamn.
Yes, I
Huge
loved it,
respect.
but I mean, it was very draining. And that's why pretty much after you'd go to school, 6 in the morning for morning basketball practice, because I was the basketball coach, because as my principal said, hey, you're tall, you're the basketball coach. Then you'd get into classes. I mean, I'd have my homeroom class, then I'd have 6 or 7 other classes, teaching, then you'd have after school, all of a sudden it's, oh, there's after school basketball, and then you'd get home and you'd correct. So I was really, always at school every day. It was very draining, and I would go home and I would play FF11. It was how I was able to relax. And being
I've
able
never
to go
played
into
FF11.
my little room and turn off the
Shocking,
lights and
I know.
put on my headphones and get into that world of Vana'diel was something that helped me escape from the stress. And then it just happened to be, one day I was online, checking for 11 related information, and I saw that Square Enix was hiring, looking for a translator, and it just kind of, wow, that would be really cool.
So it's like when a bunch of people apply to work at Blizzard, but, not the nightmare scenario. I I joke.
Koji wasn't
Kind
alone.
of.
Final Fantasy XIV was launched in 2010, but the story of this game starts 8 years earlier with the launch of Final Fantasy XI, Square's first MMO, the early days of online.
Jesus, it
Many
came
of
out
the
in
team who worked
02?
on 14 started on 11. One of those was Kasuga-san, who joined the company in 1999 to build a network infrastructure for this fledgling MMO.
自分はネットワークとサーバー担当で入っていて、なので一番最初にやっていたのが、当時プレイステーション2で初めて
PlayStation 2 era?
厳密にはドリームキャストがその前にやるんですけれども、プレイステーションプラットフォームとしては、オンライン要素が入った初めての時期だったので、プレイステーション2でネットワークを作るために、TCP/IP のドライバーを作ったりとか、
God, that brings me back. I'm so glad we're past all that garbage.
通信とか、あと ADSL がちょうど普及し始めた時期だったんで、ADSL の認証として使われた PPPoE とかっていうその本当にネットワークの下の部分、今だとあんまし誰も書かないようなところを書くっていう担当で入社してました。
We were basically in our houses with sticks trying to get the modem to start.
初めて、オンラインのあれだけの規模の、MMORPG 日本でやるってのはもう本当初めてだったんで。
Square Enix
いや
CEO.
もう正直いろんなことがありましたよ当時ね。こんなん言っちゃっていいのかな？言っちゃっていいの？OK なの？いいんだ。まずね、どういうことがあったかというと、あの時はMMO とかね、海外例えばウルティマとかそういった先行事例あるんだけど、基本的に PC ですよね。Oh,
so 11 was a console MMO. I didn't even. He was talking about the PS2, but I didn't even register that. That's interesting. I didn't know that.
ハードディスク、BB キットなんかもですね、もう何台出すんだとか、そういうのを吸ったもんだして、いろんなことがありましたんで、ほとんど不可能だとかでよく言われてましたよ、実際には。成功なんて。
11 was my first MMO. I hadn't played one before. I remember purchasing the PlayStation 2 broadband unit.
Oh god, broadband.
Because they were all sold out. I ended up paying double on like some Yahoo auction.
We're all showing our age today.
Ridiculous, but I had to play it. We got a new internet connection. We were on a regular modem at that time, but because we needed a new modem, we had to upgrade to ISDN 128. But yeah, it was definitely worth it. It was something that was completely new to me, but fascinating.
Let me just, for the people on the internet that don't know about this, it used to take us about 5 minutes to load an image. That was reality back then. You don't know what you have. God damn, that was a different time. I remember being at my friend's place and trying to load a music video, and we had the web page open. We had to buffer the video for about 30 minutes before being able to watch a 3-minute video. And that was considered good when that was happening. So that was a rough time.
And ever since then,
And that's fairly far along, even, the music video thing. That's kind of far along in the development of all this stuff. It's been one hell of a ride seeing all this develop throughout my life. It's fascinating.
Been into MMOs. That was the gateway drug for me, going in from FF11 and then trying, some of the Western MMOs as well, getting into World of Warcraft, seeing the differences between the two.
Personally, I think it's very different, here in Japan from the Western market.
I have seen this man a lot of times in a lot of images from the live letters they do. I haven't been able to watch any of them because I'm deathly afraid of spoilers. And I don't know how they deal with that on the live letter. They probably have a separate section for it, but I don't want to risk it whatsoever. So I haven't watched any of it, but I know he's on all of them together with Yoshi P. I don't know, do I call him Toshio or Murouchi? I don't know what people call this guy, but I've seen him so many times. I've seen him do the meme dance. I've seen him just be around in so many things, but I don't know much about this guy. I also didn't know he spoke English, so that was kind of shocking.
Personally, I think it's very different, here in Japan from the Western market because, it is for everyone in the globe. It's very first MMORPG on the console, PlayStation 2. And also, it was the first ever cross-platform MMO between PlayStation 2 and Xbox 360.
Oh, wow,
The
okay.
obvious one is the most Japanese people
Is that a plane in the background?
don't very
Or a
like
bird?
to chat in public.
Okay.
So, I mean, in the world, there's a lot of characters, but it's very quiet because people are using a tell instead of the say or shout. And then, but if you go to the Western world, game
We have
world,
no manners.
every single one is shouting around it. So yeah, that's a huge difference.
Yeah.
You know, while in the West, you know, you have your EverQuests and you had your Ultima Onlines. In Japan, there was none of that. And then, so Final Fantasy XI was really one of the first MMOs in Japan. And so getting to work with basically the pioneers of the Japanese MMO was really exciting. On the other hand, I mean, you could also say that it was possibly kind of a curse in the sense that they were all, you know, doing their own thing. They had their vision of what an MMO should be and what a Japanese MMO should be. And then me, again, not having played an MMO before, getting on this team and thinking, okay, this is an MMO, and translating away and working in that project, I kind of, you know, started thinking, okay, this is what an MMO is, this is what an MMO is.
Yeah.
And then that one day I start playing WoW, and it's like,
Oh, yeah, that's different.
oh. Seeing the differences between
Slightly
the two,
different,
and
yeah.
saying like, okay, what I thought was the norm in Final Fantasy XI, you know,
Yeah.
the grinding for 20 hours to go up one level,
Oh,
and
it
then
was one of
only
those,
to have your
okay.
level drop when you know, pull too many crabs and it kills you and you've lost 5 hours work.
Losing a level, terrible. Losing some XP when you die. I'm a Diablo 2 player. Have been for over 20 years. I can live with losing XP when you die. Losing a level? The level should be your save point. That should be your checkpoint. So you don't lose too much XP. Like, what happens when you raid? I'm sorry for this. Pause image, Koji. So there we go. Yeah, it's... No. Why would you demote people down a level? Don't do that. Why?
Thought that was normal, and then you're like, well, that's not normal, is it? The Japanese base game, Final Fantasy XI, had already released, and they were working on the first expansion pack, Rise of the Zalart. I was part of the team that was working to get the base game and Rise of Zalart all translated before the Japanese Rise of Zalart was finished, so we could all release at the same time.
Right. Did you get it on time?
I got it on time.
Damn.
I haven't missed a deadline yet. That's one thing I'm proud of.
Final Fantasy XI was a
Good
huge
on you, man.
success for Square Enix. It established
I'm not surprised the way he spoke about working as a teacher. I'm not surprised he hasn't missed the deadline. Dude is devoted to his work, like to an impressive degree. Really.
Current user base of around 250,000 players for years. It was the most profitable Final Fantasy game ever, and at one stage was the 6th most popular game on all of Xbox Live.
Damn.
More than that, it established the Japanese style of MMO. And when the decision was made in 2005 to start work on a sequel, the new MMO was built around things that made 11 successful, focusing, like most Final Fantasy games do, on beautiful graphics and an interesting battle system. This new game
about
was to
those
be directed and
graphics.
produced by the same duo that shipped 11. Series veteran Hiromichi Tanaka and Nobuaki Komodo. Final Fantasy XIV was announced for Windows and PlayStation 3 in 2009, but behind the scenes the development team was struggling to put the pieces of its new world together.
ファイナルファンタジー14のその最初のバージョンの、自分が見た時の一番大きな問題点、最終的にそれが問題だったと考えているものっていうのは、その最初のコンセプトとしてそのプランナーがスクリプトを書くことによってゲームを作っていこうで、利点としては、プランナーが考えて自分たちで実装するんで高速な開発ができる。要はそうじゃないと基本的にはプランナーさんはものを考えて、開発者にエンジニアに相談してどう実装するかを決めて、ゲームデザインする人はそのどういうパラメータをいじりたいかとか
They circumvented the
エンジニアと話をして作っていかなきゃいけないんですけれども、
That's interesting.
そこの部分に関してスクリプトを導入すると自分で考えて自分で実現することができるようになるっていう発想で、ゲーム実装の大半がスクリプト
Bro, the frame
組まれてたんですね。で そのスクリプト UI の問題もそうなんですけれどもゲームも UI も基本的にはスクリプトで書かれていて
This is our
スクリプトを
game.
動かすエンジン側がかなり
This is 14.
負荷が高いっていうか CPU をたくさん使わないと動かない状態
I,
にな
I
ってい
can
る
see
の
that
で
it uses a lot of
ちょっと
CPU.
ちょっとした何かをするだけでもゲーム内で
Jesus.
少し何かをするだけでも非常に CPU リソースを使うことになっていて、すぐにこうサーバーが回るサイクルが遅くなっていくっていうことが問題として発生する。
Oh my
で
god.
結果としてそのサーバーでできることは少ない、あとゲームとしてサーバーで実現できるところは少ないですし、何かしようとすると負荷が上がっちゃうんで、じゃあそれを回避するためにどうしようとかっていうことで結果的にそのゲーム内容としてリッチなものが実現できなくなっているってことが起きてましたね。で UI もスクリプトで組まれていたので、なんかちょっと処理するだけでもすごい時間がかかるっていうような問題が発生しています。
Jesus
Like I mentioned
Christ.
before, again, localization being in a position
That's
where we get to see all the
crazy.
parts come together first. We were some of the first to realize that, Houston, we have a problem. That type of situation. I mean, you had the battle team. They're like, yes, we have this great battle system, with stamina and these things that you can do.
Oof.
And then you had the story team. Like, yes, we have this story. Oh,
Yeah.
hey, we have these guild leaves and all of these parts. And everyone was really, really proud of their parts.
They're called leaves? Okay,
Look
good
at
to
this
know.
grass. It's so beautiful. Look at this barrel. It's the most beautiful.
Oh, I
barrel
know
ever
about
to
the
be,
barrel.
Represented in graphical form.
It's got as many
And-
polygons as a character.
Yes, and all of those parts, all of these teams, again, very, very proud of their work. I mean, the team was, put together some of the best minds in Square Enix. You had people that were, leads that could probably even, lead their own projects were all come together, and it became a lot of just tiny little groups making something that was really great. But once you put it together, it was kind of a mess. And no one really knew that, except for localization and probably QA as well. And we were like, okay,
God.
we need to do something. But by then it was one of those, it's kind of too late to do anything. But for us, we would be looking at the text,
Oh,
and
Flamin.
some of it, it wouldn't make sense, or it would just be very bland. And thinking, if there's any way to make this game
Hi.
better, what can we do? It's like, well, I can take this text and maybe add some more stuff into it, add some more flavor to it, and maybe that will distract people from the fact that the battle is not that fun.
At a fundamental level,
Distract from the
piecemeal
poor
design-
battle system and, the fact that the game is running at 4 FPS. Sure. Jesus. What a
The game was causing
situation.
problems. Graphics were inconsistent. While many elements of the world were copy and pasted ad nauseum, some environmental objects had as many polygons and shaders as a character model. The
That's
battle system was
crazy.
just confusing. The game didn't have elements fundamental to most modern MMOs, things like jumping, auto attack, and the ability to interact with the map using a mouse. It had a system that nerfed hardcore players to make sure they didn't level up too fast. The UI was confusing. Crafting
They
was encrypted
punish
to make
people playing the game? They punish you for playing a lot?
sure they didn't level up too fast. The UI was confusing. Crafting
What?
was incredibly complex and took forever. And simply, there just wasn't enough content. The closed beta wasn't going well. They needed more time to fix these problems, so the open beta was pushed back to within a month before launch. The team knew
Jesus.
there were problems, and they were getting frustrated.
で今まで話していた仕事っていうのは大体その2010年の1月から、
Oh
実際
god.
にリリースされる 8月ぐらいまでの間にやっていたことで、ゲ
7
ームが本
months.
当に良くないっていうのがみんなに認識されて自覚されていくっていうのは結局ベータが始まって製品版が始まってっていう
Imagine not knowing your game is a turd until a few months before it's supposed to be out. Exactly. How do you not know your game is shit before then? Because there were too many cooks. They brought in so many of the best minds at Square Enix. Now I'm starting to say it like they are. It's Square Enix. They brought in some of the best minds. And they started forming little cliques in all these different departments. And they just, we're gonna make this barrel and have it's gonna have as many polygons as a player character because the detail is gonna be great. Meanwhile, the server's shitting itself because the barrel has the same amount of polygons as a playable character. In a vacuum, like Koji said, it's great. It's very nice. It's a very good looking barrel, but put everything together, a hot mess. A hot mess.
8月9月10月ぐらいまでの期間に起きたことなんですね。で実際にはこうチーム内の意識としてもリリース前、そのベータが始まる前から
Whether we should
本当
even
に
release the
これをリ
game.
リースしていいものかどうかっていう議論はある程度そのチーム全体でオフィシャルであったわけではないですけれども、開発者の中ではやはりその世に出していいクオリティかどうかっていうところは議論がありました。
Wow.
When 1.0 was getting made, was the mentality that, oh, we're not like, that's like their thing and we have our very own successful thing over here, we're going to just make another one of those?
Right, and that's really what it felt like, is that we're going to continue doing what we did because it succeeded before, why wouldn't it succeed again? And seeing that direction, them taking that direction, and knowing that, having worked on 11, that yes, they were very successful, seeing the success that they had with Final Fantasy XI, seeing these great creators,
the hubris,
creating something that was, revolutionary.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, knowing that what they were doing was, but maybe that worked 6 or 7 years ago, but a lot of things have changed since then.
What do you mean?
I think there was even one guy on the localization team that got to that point where he just got so frustrated that he just wrote this scathing mail and sent it out to the whole team.
Oh,
Before
God.
telling anyone else on localization he was going to write it, and then we all get it at the same time, the devs team. We're reading, it's like, wow, this is really terrible. I hope he doesn't, he sent it to the whole team. Because he just got really frustrated, because he could, to him, they were being very stubborn, they weren't.
And that man was Yoshi P. No. That man most likely is no longer at this company, so that's my guess.
They hadn't moved on, whereas the rest of the world had moved on and adapted, with the release of WoW and what they had done. Whereas, the
just
team here was like,
knowing
no,
that WoW was out at the same time as that,
and that's good enough.
Then start feeling more concerning the situation. This is not fixed. You
did
announced the launch
attributes?
date, but it's not fixed. So, but still, some major portion of people are still thinking, believing. No, it's beta, still beta.
The copium, it's beta, guys. It's gonna be fixed.
Fixed or changed
Yeah.
the launch timing.
Oh God.
Kind of went from thinking, okay, this project's going to be great, to, there might be some problems. Can we fix them? Can we fix them? Okay, we can't fix them. Is there anything we can do? I don't know. It was a very taxing experience.
Yeah.
The team crossed their fingers.
Just based on his facial expression, you can tell that it was taxing, because I genuinely felt that looking at him right here. You can feel the shit they went through. What a shit show. Who is this dude? This is the guy who does he's the lead translator for 14. And you've heard his voice a lot in the game, and I'm gonna show you where later on when that gets more relevant to the conversation happening in the documentary. He had a full head of hair before 1.0. I think this is a stylistic choice. I do not appreciate your jabs at this man, this golden god. I do not. We must protect Koji at all costs. I will not hear any slander. What a precious man.
It was a very taxing experience.
The team crossed their fingers and hoped that the game's beta problems were simply that. The same issues that most MMOs have. Ones that could be...
Maybe when we launch, the problems will be fixed, said the dev team, without a plan to fix them.
fixed with patches once the game entered live operations. And so Final Fantasy XIV Online launched on September 30th, 2010. It sold well its first week, and after a month had over 600,000 players swarming into its world.
It's a lot of
It
people.
didn't take long for the cracks to appear. The problems in the beta were echoed by new players. The game was sluggish, the servers crashed, and Eorzeans quickly ran out of things to do. Quests were limited, and the fatigue system even made grinding for XP next to impossible.
Jesus,
Critics
there was a
hated it alive,
fatigue
too.
system.
Let's get right down to it. Unless you've got the patience of Job or some kind of masochist, you shouldn't play Final Fantasy XIV. Its problems are so vast that I could spend hours talking about them. The awful interface, the recycled content, the stringent limits on questing, the useless maps, the stupid market ward, these issues and dozens more constantly have you asking that age-old question, what were they thinking?
Oof.
So, what was it like seeing public reaction?
Yeah, it was very,
God.
very disheartening, because you'd want to look at those and you'd want to say, no, they don't understand, they don't know what's going on here, or but deep down, you'd know they were right.
Yeah.
And that was what kind of that dagger in your heart, and it's twisting because you want to defend what you worked on. I mean, the people that I worked with are the greatest people. I still work with a lot of them. I had worked with them before in FF11. I consider them not only coworkers but friends. But and then you see people online, bashing the work they did, and I know how hard they worked. I know how many hours they put in. I know that, like, in the last 3 or 4 months, people were basically living at work, all putting their 100% into this game that was, destined to kind of crash and burn.
Yeah.
And then to have people online just say, oh, that sucks, this person is a piece of shit, and their work is terrible.
Jesus Christ.
It hurts, but it hurts more because if I was not here and was a user and had played that game, I probably would have said the same thing.
So
That's the sad part of the online landscape today. And I'm glad he said that, because it's just so normalized to just completely dog on all these people. Oh, yeah? Yeah, it's just like, it's always open season, because it's a face, like, in most cases it's a faceless company, so you're like, oh, these dumbasses, like, they're doing this and that, and they don't understand their own game and all this stuff. But it's like, we don't know what kind of restrictions they have on them going on behind the scenes. Like, I'm betting a lot of the people, most of the people probably in these teams, love video games to some extent. And do you ever work on a project and wish for it to fail? Probably not. Maybe some people do. There's probably a lot of people that don't care. Either way, it's just a job. But still, it's such a weird place that we've landed at with all this stuff. I think people do get into video games because it's a job, but it's not like a developer position. They get into the higher-ups, the executives, the producers, the directors and stuff like that. Most of them don't work the nitty-gritty stuff. But they do nestle their way into these companies, and it's most likely those people who are putting the limitations on the people below them who actually want to deliver something that they're proud of. But it's, at the end of the day, it's either the game director or the company itself or specific devs that get the brunt of it all. And then there's some people that just fly under the radar because, who are they, It's, I think it's one of many reasons why I don't really like social media in general. It's like, I think the world has taken a turn since the creation of social media, and I'm not that big a fan of it, to be honest. And I think this is one of the big fallouts from social media in general. And there were forums before, but they weren't, a forum has never been the size of Twitter or Facebook or Reddit or even existing all at the same time. Like it's not just one mega platform. It's multiple ones going on at the same time. Instagram, TikTok, like all these things are happening at the same time, and they're not, in my mind, are not even comparable to what forums were back in the day. And that is partially because the internet was a smaller space back then, but also, like, the internet wouldn't be as big, most likely, if forums were still the main, like, place for these types of conversations. What I'm getting at is that it's all Tom's fault for creating MySpace. Goddamn that man. But goddamn do I respect him for taking the bag of money and running away. Never trying to influence, never trying to blackmail, never trying to dive into the whole, like, here's my political opinion. Like, he took the bag and left. Like, huge respect for Tom. But also, fuck Tom. This is his fault. So really, all of these developers should start bullying Tom online. That's what I'm getting at. Oh, God. Yeah, it's such a huge discussion, but it's just like my cliff notes on it, really. Oh yeah, this is the CEO of the company, by the way. The CEO of Square Enix is in this documentary being interviewed, talking about a huge failure for the company. How the hell did they manage that? I have no idea.
私CFO やってたんで見てたんですけれども、ローンチのタイミングやっぱ一番大きく違ったのは11の時のいろいろごたごたねと9の14の時のごたごた一番違うっていうのは11の時はいろいろごたごたあったけどゲームに関して言うとさすがに相当やっぱり相当程度やっぱり受け入れファン相当のやっぱり評価されたんですよね。でまあオペレーション上のねトラブルとかっていろいろ
There were some operational issues. Oh, 11. Okay. Never mind.
それはあったんですけどゲーム内容に関して言うと非常に評価されたというふうに理解してますけれども、前作の場合の一番やっぱ私はちょっとまずいなこれって思ったのはやっぱりゲーム自体の評価が非常に厳しいものだったということですね。これはちょっとやっぱり
Yeah, the core game was garbage.
大丈夫かなと。
That's not a good position to be in.
やっぱりそこはね非常にリアルに感じましたね。それはそうですね。ローンチしてしばらく経ってそんなに長い期間じゃなかったですね。そうしばらくなんでやっぱり相当なこのままで大丈夫なのかっていう。
I mean, the first few months was just an endless stream of translating apology mails from producers and directors and finding out, trying to figure out different ways of saying we're sorry, because the more you say it, the less weight it has. But Japan being a country where people apologize a lot, that's part of the culture. But then trying to translate that, it's like, okay, this is the 10th time I've said sorry in this one post, and then
gives one hell of an apology.
Like, yeah, people are going to look at that as insincere. The more you apologize, the more. And then trying to explain that to the team, it's like, no, we have to apologize. It's like, yes, you have to apologize, but and it just became we weren't talking about the game anymore. We were talking about how to translate apologies, and it seemed like that lasted for a couple months.
Actually, we see a huge drop. I mean, right after the launch timing, we got some good number of the subscribers. Then that fall. I mean, as you can imagine. So I mean, it was failure, and we announced a failure. So we see lots of decline.
さっきも話した通り、実際にはその開発内でも今リリースすべきかっていうかリリースできるクオリティにあるかっていうのは。
Imagine working in these offices when this is happening. Jesus.
リリースして実際に
No, it really shouldn't.
それまでにチーム内にあった空気はやはり出したら意外と受け入れられる
It will resolve itself.
っていう漠然とした出せばどうにかなるのかも。自分たちが思っているほど悪くない。
I mean, what else do you have at that point? You're like, we're a month from launch. Maybe it'll work. Like, what can you do at that point? If it's so far along and you're like, it must have felt hopeless.
ないのかもっていうその何の根拠もないと希望的なものがあったんですよね。で出た結果結局そんな魔法は起きなくて、やはりその
I think it's part of this is also based on the hubris from the success of 11 as well, because they're like, we made 11, like, yeah, this doesn't look great now, but once it's out there, it's gonna rock. You know, it's a very double-edged situation.
自分たちが感じている通りに
Yeah.
まだ世に出すには早いというか、世に出せるクオリティに達していない商品を出してしまったっていう気持ちはみんなにあったので、実際にその改善しなきゃっていうか、
Yeah.
根本的に対応しなきゃいけないっていうところはチーム内に割とすぐ広がったと思ってます。なので特にすごいそんなことはないっていう意見がすごく強くあって、誰かを説得しなきゃいけないみたいなことは特になかったですね。
The end.
Today, Square Enix is based
could have
across
been.
multiple floors in a modern office complex in Shinjuku, Tokyo. It's a company that is often designing multiple projects at once. And while Final Fantasy XIV was being developed, in another part of the building a different game was being made. Produced by a Final Fantasy fan, his name, Naoki Yoshida.
Hell yeah!
一番最初はファミリーコンピューター、US だとエンターテインメントシステムかのマリオブラザーズが一番最初にプレイしてたんです。とにかくそのテレビの中、テレビっていうのはその見るものだと思っていた子供の時に。ところがそのマリオブラザーズで初めてそのコントローラーを握ってゲームをプレイした時に、まずそもそもテレビのものを自分が自由に動かせるっていうことがものすごいショックで、友達の家でプレイさせてもらったんだけど、ものすごい興奮したのを覚えてますね。ドラゴンクエストっていう日本で RPG を大きく広めたタイトルを初めて触った時に、アクションではないゲーム、数字のやり取りでこんなにまたさらにゲームは面白くなるんだっていうのを、特にストーリーラインがあってっていう、また次のカルチャーショックを受けて RPG っていうジャンルにものすごくなんだろうフォーカスしていくことになったかなとは思います。当然その翌年に出たファイナルファンタジーにもその映画的なその演出、ファンタジーをより強く打ち出したっていうところにもすごい衝撃を受けてたので、やっぱり僕の中でドラゴンクエストとファイナルファンタジーっていうのはすごい大きかったですね、当時。
Like most Japanese players at the time, Yoshida-san played all the early Final Fantasy games.
Hell yeah.
He holds them in high regard, though he still holds the bitter memory of not being able to save before the last dungeon in Final Fantasy III. But when he was 11 years old, a brand new type of gaming experience arrived at home. His uncle gave him a PC. On this PC, the young gamer learned how to program BASIC. His first video game centered around trying to break into a bank vault. But this PC also exposed him to a spectrum of gaming that eluded most Japanese players.
His first game is related to a vault? How dare.
Western role-playing games. He fell in love with games like Diablo.
Hell yeah.
When he first went online and played with other players.
Battle.net's revolutionary.
ウルティマオンラインをベータからプレイし、先輩にとにかくすげえゲームあるって言われて、ウルティマオンラインをベータから始めたのが、初めて MMO をプレイした作品で、やっぱり同じようなその3回目の衝撃、3000人が同時に一つの世界で遊ぶっていうのがもうとてつもないまた衝撃でしたね。まあウルティマは本当に自由度のウルティマオンラインは特にとにかく初期は自由度がめちゃくちゃ高いゲームだったので、そのいわゆるロードの称号をつけたそのなんて言ったらいいんだろうな。
Be very gentlemanlike.
すごく紳士的なというか。
So I wrote this thing about the absolute gentleman put in this
完全に
game.
悪のプレイヤーキラーをやるキャラクターを2つ作ってどっちもものすごい遊んでたし、やっぱりその MMORPG っていうゲームがどう作られているのか、どういったエンジニアリングが必要なのかっていうのもものすごいそこで勉強させてもらったと思います。もうその頃からはコンソールと同じぐらいの比重で PC でゲームをかなり遊ぶようになってたので、自分で PC パーツ買ってきて組み立てたりしてたし、 でやっぱりそのあたりで FPS もかなりプレイし始めてたし、特に 3DMMO のスタートであるエヴァクエスト、その後プレイをし始めて、当時エヴァクエストのパッケージを日本で手に入れるのが本当に大変で出張で東京に来た時に秋葉原をね時間を作ってゾンビのように店をこううろうろしてエヴァクエストってゲームないですか、エヴァクエストってないですかって。
That's actually a very funny description of going through boxes.
Yoshida-san would embark on a career in games that would eventually see him joining Square Enix to work on the Dragon Quest series.
Interesting,
Though he wasn't
okay.
working on the Final Fantasy team, he was part of the umbrella group that was allocating programmers to various projects.
So that's where
he
it
didn't
came
have granular
from. Wow.
visibility on FF14, but he knew the team was struggling. I asked from his perspective as a producer where he thought the game's problems were coming from.
まあわかんない、これ広報にカットされるのかもしれないけどクリスタルツールズって呼ばれるミドルウェアを全社で
I'm a PR
作ろう
risk.
としていたので、
However,
腕のいいプログラマーが全部そのチームに各なんだろうゲームラインから招集されて、そのメインプログラマーがみんないないっていう状態になってしまったので、どのプロジェクトもものすごい大変な時期だった。まあオリジナルの14がああなってしまった理由の一つでもあるかなとは思いますね。さらに2つ大きな問題がそこに絡まっていて、スクエアエニックスその全体にプレイステーション2のジェネレーションで本当に世界一クオリティ、グラフィックスのクオリティが高い、そしてゲームエクスペリエンスがものすごく詰まったゲームっていうのをたくさんリリースしたので、本当にこうなんていうんだろう、ある意味自信過剰にもうなっていた時期で、自分たちが世界一だし、自分たちのグラフィックスこそが世界一だし、
I mean, they were pumping out the
その自分たち
like
に
greatest looking
だ
games.
からなんだろう、でも超巨大な成功体験ってやっぱり足かせというかにもなる
At least some
例
of
だと思う
the
んです
greatest
けど、
looking games.
ものすごくおごって
It's
た、
understandable where it
悪
came
い言い方
from.
をすればおごってた時期だったと思うんですね。まず、例えるとその刀を作る刀匠のような職人たちが本当にたくさんいて、彼らが一つずつを手作りで作って世界一のクオリティを作り上げていたんだけど、実は世界は、まあ、特にその北米を中心にテクノロジーでそれをカバーするっていうところをずっと追求してきた時期で、プレイステーション3の世代になった瞬間にテクノロジーの方がそれを上回るっていう時期が来たせいで、作り方を変えようとはしないし、
You mean Japan was
だけど
late
テク
to
ノロジ
adapt?
ーも追いつけないっていう。
The country that still uses a fax machine for most stuff? Say it ain't so. Like, it's so funny to me because in some ways Japan is so advanced, and in some ways they're like, you have to sign these 12 papers and you have to go to 3 different buildings to do it, otherwise we refuse to let you open a bank account. So it's like, oh, sure. You also have to fax me everything that I'm asking of you. Some of the things are not even related to economic questions. It's like, okay, sure. So I can see why they would at some point get lapped, you know, in this regard.
ことからさらにそれを知ってるはずのプログラマーたちはミドルウェアの制作に行ってるっていう状態で、でもグラフィックス作ってるそのアーティストたちは自分たちの作り方こそが世界一だと思ってるので、古い作り方で引き続きものすごく負荷のかかるやり方でアセットを作ってたので、もうそれらが絡まってっていうのが、まあもう一つの大きな、さっき2つあるって言った問題の1つ目がそれですね。もう一つはプライドはいついかなる時でもとても大切なものだとは思うんですけど、そこにやっぱり超巨大な成功体験をしたっていうこと自体が乗っかってきちゃうと、
Blizzard
そう自分たちの作るゲームこそがベストであって他をあんまり見る必要がないっていう時期でもあったんじゃないかなと思っていて、例えば当時世界多分 MMORPG を知ってる人に 世界最大の MMORPG は何ですかって言ったら、100人に聞いたら100人がワールド・オブ・ウォークラフトって言ったはずなのに、誰もプレイしてない。
None of them even tried it?
これはワールド・オブ・ウォークラフトを知ってるか知ってないかっていう話だけの話をしてるんじゃなくて、その自分たちが世の中に対して新しいそのビデオゲームをリリースしようとするときにライバルになるタイトルは何だろうとか、ユーザーは今プレイヤーはどこにそのゲームエクスペリエンスの最新の状態をプレイしてるんだろうっていうのを知らないっていう。
2010. That's Wrath of the Lich King. They launched this during Wrath of the Lich King? Like that? That just dawned on me. Jesus. 14 launched during Wrath of the Lich King. Of course they were shit on. Like, what the hell? That didn't even occur to me until just now. Holy shit, of course they got a lot of shit. Wow, okay.
いうのがその感覚として僕には結構信じられない。なんでもっとみんなゲームプレイしないの？だって自分たちが今どの辺りにいるか分かんなくなっちゃうよっていうのがまあ言いたい。で特に14の場合に関してはもちろんファイナルファンタジー11の超巨大な成功体験っていうのが邪魔をしたっていうのもあるとは思うんだけど、あの当時はエヴァークエストを徹底的にプレイをしてだからこそ11を作ったはずなのに、新しいレストランをオープンするときに隣にあるレストランがどんなメニューを出していてどんなサービスをしてるかを知らずにレストラン開店させる人はいないんじゃないって。
So just at the launch stage then of 1.0, what was the feeling within Square Enix? The beta was quite close to launch. Were people anticipating that there would be negative feedback, or were they less aware that that was going to happen, I guess?
僕は他のチームにいてすごくベータの評判が悪いっていうのはネットでニュースは見てましたね。ただ多かれ少なかれ MMORPG のローンチは絶対にまあ荒れやすい、サーバーがすぐ落ちるとか、まあ、ストレステストをやってるけどプレイヤーの方は遊びたいからやっぱりサーバーが落ちるとやっぱりすごく文句を言って当然だと思いますし、だから僕もやっぱり11を作ったチームだからまあそうは言っても11のやっぱり完成度が高いのでそこと比較をしてあの機能がないこの機能がないっていう話をしてるのかなっていうふうに思ってた、僕は僕自身の開発が忙しかったのもあって、ただそれも、少しずつ収まっていくんだろうなっていうふうに僕は当時は見てた。ただ別の角度、今度はそのオリジナルの14チームの中のその視点としてはこのままだと本当にまずいもっと時間をかけて品質を上げないとっていうもちろん声を上げる人たちもいたけれど、会社ってまあ全体の判断としてはファイナルファンタジー11のスタートもそうだったと機能たくさんなかったしものすごくネガティブなフィードバックもたくさん来たけどパッチでどんどん直していって11は完成したんだから14も大丈夫だと、最初は絶対こうなんだっていう風に判断したのでベータを終わらせてリリースへ踏み切ったっていうのが当時のジャッジだったって僕はチームに入ってからインタビューをして、
So it wasn't even known within Square that that was happening.
チームの中ではやっぱり議論はあったそうです。あのままじゃダメ、まずいっていう話は。ただ最終的なジャッジは今お話しした通り11の時もそうだった。でも11だってずっとパッチを続けてああなったじゃないかと。
Eventually, corporate realized that this wasn't usual launch problems, so they called on a few select members of the team to create a task force. This task force would research what changes the game needed and the resources the development environment would require to do the work. Members of that team would talk to Yoshida-san about their worries after hours. His thoughts were that the current organizational structure would need to be modified if the team was going to make the changes required. In October of 2010, Yoshida-san talked to the then Square Enix president Yoichi Wada
just
and
a
suggested they
month
initiate
after
a company-wide emergency to get the team the resources they needed.
Jesus,
Wada-san spent a few days talking to the 14 development team about their concerns, and while a lot of the team had suggested that the current task force was in fact up to the task, Some members of the 14 team had pleaded to have Yoshida-san join the project to help. And so it transpired that in late November, corporate took the decision to remove Hiromichi Tanaka from the team and move Nobuaki Komodo from director to lead designer. Both of their vacant positions would be filled by Yoshida-san.
By the man himself.
At that time,
The
he
guy.
was leading a team that was working on an original IP for Square Enix. He was disappointed to leave that team, but excited for the opportunity to work on one of the company's crown jewels, a numbered Final Fantasy game.
Goddamn.
So, he got right to work.
やらなきゃいけないことが当時3つあると思ってて、
Okay,
まあ
let's
順
hear
番にや
it.
ってったんですけど、まずそのチームにまあオリジナルのチームにトップが変わります。であとそのタスクフォースメンバーもそのまま開発コアとしてリードに入りますっていう当然話をしなきゃいけない。
Oh,
全チームに。
Okay.
ドラゴンクエスト側のゲームを開
get
発す
the
ることが
top
多く
dogs
て
out of here.
その
Okay.
ほとんどのスタッフを知らないというか、まあ顔と名前ぐらいは知ってるスタッフはいたけど、その一緒に仕事したことがある人がほとんどいなかったので、まず say hello
Say hello.
で一度はみんな仕事したことがないから
Yeah,
ど
that
んな
must
仕
have
事を
been
する人間な
so
のかを見てく
weird.
れればいいよってまずで、あこいつダメだと思ったらチームを抜けて構わないからっていう話を最初にして一緒に仕事して
Oh, okay. He didn't mean it like that. Okay, I thought it was like, if you don't like how I run this, you're free to leave whenever. No, he was like, you don't have to stay on this sinking ship, but please give me some time. Okay.
一回はいいよねってでそれでダメだと思ったら本当すぐ抜けて構わないから3ヶ月ぐらいまず一緒にやろうよっていう話を
Yeah.
僕スピーチでした記憶があります。
That's good. That's great.
でまあもう一回チャレンジするよ。まあ当然その時その申請するなんて話はまだ計画がなかったので、とにかく立て直しをやるよと、ギブアップはしないよっていう話をした時に、
Yeah.
僕を知ってる何人かはよしやるぞ。
How do you even approach that though?
ともういいもう無理だよっていう人たちとなんだよ
Understandable.
この急な体制変更って言ってまあ怒ってる雰囲気の人たち。
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, imagine working on this, seeing the reaction, and then a new guy comes in and like, we're not gonna abandon this shit. we're gonna go even harder. And it's like, if you don't know who the guy is that's taking over, you're like, we're gonna have to deal with this bullshit even more? Oh no.
大のその時の雰囲気でしたね。
Yeah.
まあそんな中で今も14のサウンドディレクターやってる
Soken.
まあその話をしてた時と大きなホールだったんですけど、2階のサウンドブースで僕のマイクの調整とかやってくれてて、そのソケンがあいつだけですよやり直すぞっていうかそのリベンジするぞって言ったらガッツポーズしてたのはあいつだけです。今でも覚えてますよ。2階席でおっしゃーってやってたんであいつ。
That's
I saw both
great.
reactions. I saw the oh my
Oh, that's so heartwarming hearing about Soken. God damn. I mean, Soken is also just one of the for me like the three main characters of Final Fantasy XIV are Yoshi P, Soken, and Koji Fox. Those are the main characters. God damn. Because I mean, Soken, you gotta remember he had at one point got a cancer diagnosis, and he wrote the soundtrack to Shadowbringers while undergoing treatment. And no one in the company knew that was happening at the time. Like, first of all, crazy bad workplace culture in Japan in general to be like, I'm the most sick I've been my entire life. I'm gonna work. But like, he obviously loves what he's doing, so it's not like that really. But it's like, goddamn, what a crazy person. Just in general, like the amount of respect I have for that man, insane. Like, as someone who likes to dabble in music, like, I can play a few instruments, but like I enjoy doing it. But it's like, what a goddamn musical god. Like, what the stuff that guy's put together, incredible.
おっしゃーってやってたねあいつ。
I love that he was the lone supporter, like, or not the lone supporter, but like the one he like really remembers from this happening.
Both reactions. I
That's
saw
great.
the, oh my God, we just went through a year of hell, and now he's asking us to go through a year and a half of hell to this point that might, you know, be another failure.
Yeah.
Because, you know, no one had taken a game and rebuilt it in this manner before. So basically he's saying like, yeah, you just have to trust me, and yeah, you could, you know, waste another year and a half of your life and it could be a failure, and, you know, but you're gonna have to believe me on this one. And so, yeah, a lot of people are like, I can't do this anymore, I don't know. And I can understand that, because again, it was a gamble. But then on the other hand, there were, I mean, a lot of us, you know, myself included, but I mean, a lot of people on the team that were like, no, I mean, we worked so hard on this, and we did our jobs the best that we could.
I can't believe this is
but
14.
For a lot of, you know,
Like, it
reasons,
looks so
some
different.
circumstances that were out of our control. You know, decisions made by higher ups, decisions made by other teams that have, you know, affected our work, and nothing that we could do about it. But we had put our all into it, and we were invested in the project. We still believed in the project. To have someone from the outside come in, and not just come in to say, okay, you know, forget it, we're just going to do it my way or the highway. He's like, he, you know, he asked our opinions. He laid out a roadmap. He gave us a vision and a hope, and it, even though it seemed like it would be difficult to achieve, it didn't seem inconceivable.
Yoshi P knew there was no time to wait. He worked with corporate to make sure the team had time off, both
What a
for them to
crazy
relax,
person.
but also to give him time to build his new vision, to do research playing other MMOs, and to
Hell
help
yeah.
draft his plan, to deliver the vision and how the team was going to do it. They had very little time to fix this game, so once they started, the specifications document would have to be watertight, and as captain of the ship, he needed to be able to answer every question the team may have, quickly.
Yoshida-san was now at the helm of his first Final Fantasy, and as an avid MMO fan, he was looking forward to getting in there and fixing it. What he couldn't have known at this stage was the scale of the job ahead of him, that
Yeah.
no matter how much they patched Final Fantasy XIV online, they couldn't ever fix it. What they'd have to do was something that no developer had ever done, to rebuild an entire MMO while the original version was still running.
I don't think that
That's a
they
crazy
realized
ask.
immediately that it was something that couldn't be solved via patches. I think they still believe that, you know, if we patch it, it'll be fine. And it wasn't until they reevaluated and then brought in, you know, the new blood. Yoshida-san came in and told them, okay, yeah, this is not something that can be patched. If we want to fix this, we're going to have to take a drastic step.
Yoshida spent 7 weeks researching and returned with 2 options for corporate. It was then he realized that it would be impossible to convert the current game into an MMO that could last the test of time. Ultimately though, this was a decision that corporate had to make. So he returned with not 1, but 2 plans. Plan A and Plan B. During this meeting, he explained that Plan A would be to patch the game and make it more playable, but that ultimately the game would never really satisfy players, and though Square Enix may make their money back, the damage to the online brand would be catastrophic. And then there was Plan B.
今のファイナルファンタジー4、当時のオリジナルのファイナルファンタジ
Patch
ー
the
4
current one, okay.
パッチを当てて、そのできる限りポジティブに遊べるものにしながら裏で全く新しいそのファイナルファンタジー
You're a
14を
crazy
もう一度
person.
作り直すっていうのがプラン B で、まあその話だけを聞くと、まあそんなバカなってなるので当然どうやってそれを達成するかチームを
What are you talking about? Trying to divide up your
どう
team.
いったそのマネジメントスタイルでそれをやるのかで大体発売時期
Oh, they promised a PS3 version?
をリリースするっていうのがプレイヤーとの約束だったので
We would need to launch within this
3の
life cycle of the
寿命が来る
PS3.
前にリリースしなきゃいけないので
They set themselves up for failure from the start. God damn. They were like, we have announced we're launching on the PS3. We have to do this within the PS3's lifespan. Oh, God.
2012年年末から2013年中には絶対リリース
Dude, they were set up
で
to
きるっていうわ
fail.
けであればっていうプレゼンテーションをしてリスクは高いただ当然そんなことをした
Yeah, they're releasing it under the same title, which is like...
しかも同じタイトルで作り直してるから 成功、
Yeah,
う
what
ま
the
くいっ
hell?
たとしても成功するかどうかはわからない。ただ少なくともやっぱりファイナルファンタジーってクレイジーだねとかすごいことするねとか、
Yeah.
少なくとも自分たちがミスしたことを認めて信頼を取り戻そうとしたっていう努力は見てくれてる人は多分見てくれるだろう。だからどっちをチョイスするかは会社に任せる。ただどっちであっても全力でやる。
The balls on this man.
プレゼンテーションし
God
て、
damn.
まあ、結果的にはねプラン B でっていう
They
ことなんで
chose option B.
今こうなってますけど。
So they too are a little crazy. Damn. The
Final
Goobu.
Fantasy XIV 1.0 was in a state of disarray. Square Enix had decided
nice
to
way of putting
suspend
it.
subscriptions to help ease the negativity around the game, while the PS3 version was indefinitely postponed. For the next 2 years, Yoshida-san and his team would work tirelessly on not one, but 2 MMOs, patching the original 1.0 to fans' expectations, while secretly working on a brand new version of Final Fantasy XIV. In our next episode, we focus on that 2-year period and tell the incredible story of the falling moon of Dalamud, the death of 1.0,
Yeah.
and the birth of a new ARZ.
Yes. Honestly, that's crazy. I can't believe this happened. I cannot believe this is a thing that actually happened in the games industry. That's crazy. Everything was stacked against them from the beginning. Like, it's like this was made to be a documentary. It's like they lived their lives for a few years just to be documented later on. It's... Yeah, I have such respect for that dev team, and just the sympathy I feel for them. God damn. Or is it empathy? I never remember which one applies to a situation. It's like, god damn. I cannot even imagine having to go through all that. And then some crazy person comes in and like, we can do it again. Like, what the hell do you do? Yeah. Sympathy is having gone through it yourself, right? Okay, trying to understand. Okay. They feel very similar to me. Yeah, that's part 1. What a... I don't know what else to say. I feel like I've spoken my mind about all that's happening, like when it's been going on in this, but wow. I'm gonna upload all these to YouTube fairly soon after streaming it, so they're gonna be out of order. There are 3 parts, but part 2 and 3 are substantially shorter than the one we just watched. So, kind of 2 parts, basically. Yeah, they're going to be uploaded in like a few days. So, if this is watched on YouTube, this was recorded after I beat 5.3, before I started 5.4. If you want to watch this chronologically. But yeah, let's dive into the death of 1.0. Oh yeah. Do I need to... No, it's still there. Hey man. What's up? We're watching documentaries today. For now, we are going to play...
To fix this problem.
We are going to play 5.4 later, but we are wrapping up the documentary today. Then we're diving head first into 5.4.
So what did you think from your perspective as CFO? To fix this problem, it's going to cost a lot of money. It's going to involve creating a new game,
It's going to involve
The
keeping
CEO.
the other game still running. Did you think at that time that that was a solid investment, that that's what Square Enix should be doing?
What
or
were you
did
thinking?
you think that it was a risky venture?
単純にそこだけ見るとね、すごくリスクの高い
I'd say so, yeah.
話多分一般的には多分なるというふうに思うんですけれども、さすがに当社はね、ナンバリングタイトルでフラッグシップのタイトルで MMO、これだけのタイトルなわけですから、それがこのままサービスが頓挫してしまうというのは、これは非常に将来的にまずいと。これはやっぱり経営上これは非常に大きなダメージを与えるということで、再度作り直しと並行してやるということの投資に関しては、これははっきり言って、やっぱりやるべきっていうか、やらざるを得ないというふうな判断でしたね。ものすごい財務的なリスクがものすごく大きかったですけどね。
I wonder if that's how that discussion sounded when this was happening, or if that's how they view it now. Because that seemed like a very easy answer for him to give, and of course we have already seen in the first part that there is a PR person in the room, so we know he has prepared answers for a lot of these questions, but like I wonder if it was that simple. I don't think so, but I'm glad that's where we ended up, at least.
Hello and welcome back to our series on the fall and rise of Final Fantasy XIV Online.
The fall and rise of
We joined
gentlemen.
Yoshida-san and the team at Square Enix at the start of a long adventure, and with players leaving en masse and the clock ticking, it was time for them to formulate a plan. But how exactly do you rebuild an MMO while people are still playing it?
Yoshida-san set his eyes on a 2013 launch date for the new version of 14 as he
Vida
wanted to have the
Geld.
game out for fans within the PlayStation 3's life cycle. But to do this while still patching 1.0, he would have to create an entire...
All the class or job trainers are in the 1.0 game? Okay, interesting.
entirely new
Didn't know that.
MMO in less than half the time of most conservative estimates. So before we get into specifics of what exactly was changed, I wanted to know how he did it.
That map.
So for a moment, we step away from game design and dive into a critically important aspect of video games development that we rarely talk about: project management.
Designing an MMO I just imagine the timeline for something like this is at least 5 years for anything. And you're
Minimum.
being asked to do it in less than half of that probably. When you're designing games, when we talk to people, so much of it is iterative, that you create something and then you refine it and you brush it and then you look at it again. But you didn't have that luxury. You had to make sure that the version of A Realm Reborn that was coming out at that date was the final package. So did that change the way that you had to set up the team and the way your workflow kind of went?
MMORPG の開発に5年が普通だっていうのはもうちょっと強く言っといてください。
Yeah.
まずそのスケジュールトラブルを起こさないためのそのマネジメントの工夫としては、なんだろうな、言い方がちょっと難しいんですけど、ものすごく腕のいい、特に100人に1人ぐらいしかいないようなプログラマーがたくさんやっぱりいるわけではないので、かつものすごい短い期間で大量のコンテンツやアセットを作らなければいけないので、
Yeah.
人がたくさんどうして
I
も
bet they
並行
reused
作
a
業が
lot
か
of stuff.
かってしまう。
Understandably
能
so.
力のこの差をある意味高いレベルに合わせるんじゃなくて低いレベルに合わせるというか、言い方が難しいな、平均的なところに合わせるっていうそのマネージメントをすることでリスクをなくすってことをしました。この後ちょっともうちょっと詳しく話します。で、何をしたかというと、とにかく一つのタスク、例えばドラグーンという
Estanian.
そのジョブを作るっていう時に、今言ったドラグーンっていうジョブを作るっていうタイトルって1タスクに見えるけど、そうじゃない実際には。何個のドラグーンにはアクションが必要で、そのアクションを一つプログラミングするのに、どれだけかかるか。もちろんそのドラグーンの特定のアクションを作るために仕様書も必要だし、仕様書を作った後は 実際に
There's so much that goes into this that we'd never even
使用書に
consider.
時間かかるなら、それを例えば僕に確認依頼が飛んで僕がチェックするのに例えば15分かかる。そのぐらい一つのタスクに見えるものを徹底的にもう細かく分解させるっていうちょっとなんだろうな。
Yeah.
究極の
I mean, you had to.
そのミニマムな
It's crazy.
管理方法を引いたので
They sped through all these
結構ストレ
things.
スだっただろうなとは思います。で、そのさらにシングルタスクに対して最もこのタスクが自分で早く終わると予測される時間、この時間でこのタスクが完了したら自分を褒めてもいい。逆にこのタスクがこの時間以上かかってしまったら給料をもらう資格がないっていうぐらいその最悪のケース
Okay.
っていうそのミニマムで終わる時間とマックスかかってもこれだけだろうっていう時間を両方申告させて
Jesus.
その平均値で基本的にはスケジュールを管理するっていう本当にミニマムマイクロマネージメントマイクロすぎるぐらいのマイクロマネージメントをしてました。それをウィーク最初はウィークで
while the devs were working, he was playing a strategy game using his employees. God damn, what a crazy person. I can't even imagine trying to figure all this shit out. How did they do this?
このやり方に慣れてもらうために毎週1週間でそのマネジメントを回してで1週間経つと結果が出るのでさらにそこに個人パラメータ例えば吉田はやたらとミニマムをこう短い時間で申告するけど結局タスクが終わってみるとマックスに寄りがちだなってなった場合は 50% で見積もるんじゃなくてもうその係数をかけて吉田はマックス側に寄るからきっと次の週のスプリントはもうちょっとマックス側に寄るだろうみたいなのをどんどんこう個人特性までそうやって管理してたので1日の稼働時間は8時間ではありますけど、まあ、
Dude, imagine if he was someone the people like doesn't respect and love like the case is now. Like people love Yoshi P. Imagine if this was a terrible boss doing all of this. This place would be hell. This place would be my worst nightmare to work at if the boss was a piece of shit doing all of the things he's doing right here. Like if he was overseeing everything I was doing, every single thing had to go through him. He would have a running estimate of how long every single task I perform takes, and then just have that factual data in front of him and then use that in ways to like adjust what he will expect of me and what he will ask of me, like stuff like that. If that's used by a bad boss, I'm out immediately. I'm working. Don't look at me. That's like
会議室でのミーティングじゃなかったとしてもスタッフと仕様の打ち合わせを絶対にそのデスクトゥデスクでフェイストゥフェイスでやることもあると思うので1日の稼働は6時間で計算してましたね。その時は全員6時間8時間では見ない、で大体慣れてきたらそれをまあ2週間スプリントに変えてあとは毎朝必ずスタンドアップミーティングをしてそれぞれのセクションで自分のタスクが今どうなってるのか誰かのタスクが遅れてるせいで自分のタスクに取り掛かれないとかいうのは毎朝スタンドアップミーティングをしてではこのタスクを入れ替えてこっちを先にやってくれないとこの人が止まってしまうからっていうのをもう全部毎朝やってましたね。だからスクラムっていうそのマネジメント手法のちょっと変形型ですね。ただ最後に言っときますけどこのマイクロマネジメント
I would not recommend it at all. Damn.
おすすめしないですよ。まあ、2年弱で MMORPG を作る逆に言うとスタッフにも2年 かからず終わるから。
Yeah, yeah. This is gonna end
だから今は我慢してる
when we
やってもらった
ship.
ものなので、一般的には絶対お勧めしないです。細かすぎます。
I mean, anyone can come in and say, "Oh yeah, we're gonna rebuild the game. Follow me."
Yeah.
But he came in with, this huge Excel that had all of these lists of everything on it. What we're gonna do here. What we're gonna do here. This is when we're gonna do them by, and this is what we're gonna do here. And to see that, it's like, okay, this isn't just a stopgap type of thing where a president's like, okay, crazy here, let's just change the leader and hopefully things will, get better.
Yeah.
It wasn't
like
actual,
most
okay,
companies.
this guy really wants to do this. He has this plan.
Yoshida had them running like a well-oiled machine, so it was time to get to work. First things first, they had to start the rollout of patches for 1.0, but a critical part of the failure of the first game was the poor communications the development team had with their community. So to keep diehard fans on board during this protracted period of redevelopment, they had to be a lot more transparent.
What we explained to players very first is it was failure. Failure. So we need to restart the game. But we at that timing we didn't announce the. Realm Reborn is not announced, but we are going to fix this game. We need more communication. So just list all the changes, plan changes. So some, upper management people doesn't like this because if you show this to the players, player knows what we will do. So, after that, you did this, but you didn't do this, you didn't this. Everyone can check it.
They can hold you accountable.
Some people doesn't really like that way, but when Yoshida-san and myself are discussing how we deal with the community, but what we need to do is to establish the trust.
確かに、今の14のそのユーザーベースから見れば当時のユーザーベースはものすごい小さかったと思う、今と比較すれば。ただ、メディアの皆さんからもそのプレイヤーからも、そのファイナルファンタジー14はもうダメだ、むしろなんであんなダメなゲーム遊んでるの君たちどうかしてるんじゃないのって言われながらも、いやファイナルファンタジー
Yeah, that's honestly, I didn't think about that. First thing that shocked me from this documentary was the fact that they launched 1.0 when Wrath of the Lich King was out. Crazy. Second is now that he's saying like, yeah, when 14 came out, it was such a failure and people were like, Final Fantasy's done. And I was like, oh goddamn, yeah, because 13 was the story of lightning. So, and those games, even I know people don't love those games. Of course, there are people who like them and people who love them, but like, generally, they're not very popular. You're one of the few, yes. You are one of the few. Because like, the amount of people I've heard be like, yeah, I abandoned that game. I couldn't stand it, and it's just a corridor experience, like all this stuff. Just so the amount of times I've heard that is actually crazy, considering the like very limited amount of people I know who have ever touched a Final Fantasy game. It's like so widespread an opinion. That it even reaches someone like me who is not like invested in Final Fantasy in the same way a lot of people are. Like, yeah, I played 6 when I was a kid. I don't like remember that much from that game. Like, I remember a lot of things, but like, I don't remember the whole journey of it. And that's the only other Final Fantasy game I had any experience with. The only other one was Lord of the Rings, The Third Age, which is absolutely like a Final Fantasy game. But other than that, no. Not a single one. But even I knew the amount of just disdain people have for 13. And then they came out with 13.2 or whatever, and people were even angrier. So it was like, okay, yeah, you had that one coming out before 14, and then 14 happens, and people are like, yo, this is dog shit. So, like, that's like lightning didn't strike twice in the bottle. She did once, and then poop entered the bottle, and then it was just. Yeah, but 15 was in development hell, but like that hadn't come out yet when this was happening, so they scrapped that shit, and then I'm assuming 15 was 15 supposed to be 14, and because they scrapped it, this took the number, like 15 was meant to be 13. Interesting. Okay. Huh. Damn. It was meant to be a saga. Okay. It was meant to be a saga, but it was in hell so long they rebranded it to 15. It would have been funnier if it was meant to release as 13, and they just never made a 13 and 14 and just released it as 15, because it was in development hell for so long, and they just never talked about what happened to 13 and 14. God. It was around this time, yeah. That's probably why they were pulling a lot of people from the 1.0 team to develop a new engine, I would assume. Because they were doing all of the other stuff on the side. So yeah, but like having... I don't know much about 12, so I have no idea what the reception is about 12, but like that might also speak a bit to it, because... I've never heard a single person, as far as I can remember, talk about 12. So maybe it's not very well-known, like, universal game in the same way that the others are. I have no idea. Yeah, 12 is forgettable. Exactly. 12 is forgettable. So that is bad. Because if you go from... Oh yes, the MMO that revolutionized the console landscape in 11. 12 is forgettable. Oh yeah, 12 is Fran and the Bunny People. Yeah, it's Evilus. And yeah, you have the revolutionary 11 for console. You have 12, which is kind of forgettable. Starts a huge spin-off series, but like if you're not a diehard, it didn't start a spin-off series. What am I saying? Tactics did, but what like it kind of it has ties to like a really old classic Final Fantasy spin-off game, and makes it relevant again, and like ties all of that together. But like at the same time, as you're saying, it's a forgettable game, which is not good. And then you have 13 and 13-2, which a lot of people just don't like, and then you have 14 bombing. Like, yeah, them being like a Final Fantasy might be dead is not that much of a reach at that point. Goddamn. Lightning Returns was 13-3. That happened? I thought 13-2 was Lightning Returns. They did 2 follow-ups? Madmen. 15 took that long. Horrible. I don't know who the hell Sarah is. I don't know. And 13-3 played Lightning again. Okay, Lightning Sister? Lightning Sister is called Thunder. You can never convince me otherwise. Let's move on. we don't need to talk about the past. Let's move on.
シリーズだから絶対何とかしてくれるはずだ。いや、これはこれで僕らは楽しんでるからほっといてくれ。その11だって最初の頃はいろいろあったけど、きっと良くなるはずって言って、数はもちろん
It's gonna get better, guys. Huffing Copium.
そのコミュニティだったかもしれないけど、誰よりもスクエアエニックスやファイナルファンタジーのことを応援してくれている人たちだったので、この人たちを無視するんだと、多分この先もうファイナルファンタジーはダメだろうと思ってたので、むしろ何よりも大切にしなきゃいけない部分だったっていうのが最も大きい理由。それは何億円使おうが回収できない後でコストだと思うので、信頼ってそういうことなのかなっていうふうに会社にもプレゼンテーションしましたし。
The fact that he felt the responsibility towards the 1.0 players, huge.
あともう一つやっぱり大きなポイントは、本当にファイナルファンタジー14がリバンプしてその大逆転するためには絶対に彼らの力が必要だっていうことも もう一つ重要な
Very smart
意味を持
man.
っていると考えてました。
Next, Yoshida split his team in half, some working on the new version of 14 and others working on the updates to 1.0, what he called the guts version of the game. But with so much of the game requiring
Guts.
fixing, where do you even start?
まず一番最初にやらなきゃいけないと思ったのは
Any opportunity I get to
インター
drop
フ
a
ェース
Berserk reference, I
とに
do.
かくなんて言うんだろうな、最低限遊べるように正直本当申し訳ない話なんですけど
14 was just awful.
最初にやっぱりオリジナルの14触った時にインターフェースがあまりにもなんだろうひどすぎて話にならない。だって PC バー
Oh
ジョン
my
出てる
god.
ゲームパッドがないとまともに遊べない。聞いたことがないそんな PC ゲーム。
You couldn't use a mouse and
マウスキーボード
keyboard?
まともに遊べないゲームなんか見たことがなかったので、いくらそのコンテンツを作ろうがジョブを作ろうが
What the hell were they
コンテ
thinking?
ンツの面白さに到達する前に人はゲームをやめてしまうので、とにかくインターフェースを直さないとゲームにならないっていうふうに考えたので、一番最初にすごい丁寧に取り掛かったのはやっぱりインターフェースの改修っていうところですね。
Jesus
僕最初に
Christ.
プレイした時5分ぐらいでやめちゃいましたもん。でもね、笑い話でクイットの仕方が分からなくて、ウィンドウの
I don't know how to
右上にある
quit.
×ボタンを押そうとしたんですよ。で押したら
He wanted out after 5 minutes, but he saw no exit. Poor guy.
セーブされない可能性があります。
Your progress
それで
might
よ
not
ろ
be
しいですかって
saved.
ダイヤル
It's
が
an
出る。い
MMO.
やいや、よくないでしょ。
It's an
いや僕はエン
MMO.
ジニアだから
What do you
サーバー
do?
に常に
What do you
書き込んでる
mean?
からそんなわけないじゃんって思ってるんですけど、万が一のことがあるから多分出てるんですよ、そのダイアログ。でも意味がわからない。
Yeah.
でそうなるともう怖くて押せないですよね。
Yeah.
なんだこれでノーって押すと
People are scared shitless to close the game because they might lose progress. But if they keep playing too much, the game is gonna slow your XP gain down. So you're just in a fucking hell of a gameplay loop that hates you. Like, what? They made a torture device. They didn't make a game. What the hell?
またゲームにいるわけでしょ。 X 押すダイアログでしょ。
They made a toxic boyfriend is what they did. They were like, "You sure you want to leave? Things might not work out. Like, what if you lose what we have?" It's like, the most like uncomfortable existence possible. Like, goddamn, what a shit show.
Interface isn't sexy. It's not something you tend to hear a lot about in video games coverage, because really, when it's done correctly, you're not supposed to notice it.
Yeah.
So when the early patches for the game concentrated on interface and quality of life updates, much of the community began to get frustrated. The team needed to fix it quickly, so Yoshida employed the help of a Square veteran, one of the developers, on that original 1.0 task
He looks like a
force.
veteran.
はい、
Absolutely.
皆川博
User interface leader.
フ
Okay.
ァイナルファンタジー14ではユーザーインターフェースの、設計デザインとあとアート的なビジュアルの方も担当しています。よろしくお願いします。今47歳なんですけれども、25の時に入社したのでもう22年経ちますね。当時はまだスクエアエニックスがスクエアという会
Just
社だったの
Square.
で、
Okay.
ですね、ファイナルファンタジ
Tactics,
ー
okay.
タクティクスの、アートディレクターを担当していました。なので普段は少ない情報、なるべく少ない情報やシンプルな表示を心がけているんですけれども、今回はカスタマイズ性というかよりツール的な考え方でいろんなプレイヤーがそれぞれ
Say what you will about 1.0, but this skirt thing on that armor looks way better in 1.0. This part of this armor looks way better in 1.0 than it does now. This thing, the skirt part of this armor looks enormous in 2.0 onwards. That looks way better. My mind sidetracked hard because I love the armor. But like, that thing looks like you're wearing like an old ball gown almost on the current stuff. This looks great.
ツール的な考え方でいろんなプレイヤーが それぞれ自分の好きなカスタマイズができるようにっていうことを普段よりも強く意識してます。まあ、
That doesn't look
や
that
はり
great.
バトルがテンポのスピーディーなテンポのゲームなので、カーソルフォーカスを十字キー
20 FPS is generous
決定するっていうまあそういう操作性ではちょっとゲームにならないだろうというところがあったので、まあ、かなり最初の頃にクロスホットバーというアクションを選択するインターフェースを考えたんですけれども、ただこのインターフェース自体は割と昔から他のゲームで自分自身作ったり使ったりしていたものだったので、絶対それでいけるだろうなという思いはありました。なので実はそこはあまり苦労していなかったりします。まあ例えば表現方法が変わると必ず僕はこっちの方が良かったっていう話が来るんですね。例えば
This thing I hate is different. How dare you?
表示されていたんですけれども、アイコンになると当然なんか似ていてよくわからないとか、なので両方欲しいっていう話は受けて、両方作るのは大変なんだよなっていうそういうところはありました。まあ、今でも ARR のリリースから積み残しの仕事リストみたいなのがあるんですけれども、まあ2年以上経って今入るみたいな機能もたまにあったりします。
でもう一つはバトルシステムをとにかく変更しないと
The battle
コ
system?
ンテンツが
Yes.
作れない。つまりあまり良くないバトルシステムをベースにして、
I'd say that's very
コンテン
important.
ツを作ったとしてもコンテンツが面白くならない。だから順番としてはインターフェースを修正しながらバトルシステムを変更して、やっとその先にコンテンツを作るっていうのが、まあ、順番としては僕は真っ当だと思った。当時のバトルシステムも当時は15人でパーティーが組めてあって、しかもマジックポイント MP の管理っていうものがほぼなかったので、当時のファイナルファンタジー14の中で最強の回復魔法だったケアルガーっていうスペルをずっと連打してても MP がゼロにならない。永遠ケアルガーして OK で、他の魔法いらないよね。じゃあ
Yeah, what? You can just spam
当
those.
時は15人で一つのモンスターを殴りまくって回復しまくってっていうすごい大雑把なゲームだったので、これを戦略的なバトルシステム計算式に変えていかないとコンテンツが面白くならない。だから UI を直しながらバトルシステムを変更して、でそれらの準備をしながら最も重要だと思ってたのはファイナルファンタジーエレメントっていうものをとにかく入れていくこと。
He did that for sure.
次のというか最も大きな課題だっていうふうに思ってました。なぜなら当時ジ
Oh.
ョブもなかった、ナイトもいない、ブラックメイジもいない、ホワイトメイジもいない。これはファイナルファンタジーな
You couldn't ride a chocobo?
チョコボに乗れるわけでもない
How
し、
how is it a Final Fantasy game if you can't ride a chocobo? Like a modern Final Fantasy game. I'm sure there are some of the old ones where you can't, but like you don't have paladins, you don't have black mages, you don't have white mages, no chocobo riding. What is this then? Like what are we playing if none of those things are in the game?
イフリートは出てきてるけど戦えないし、
Okay. You couldn't fight Ifrit?
だから僕らがコンテンツとして
How do you make an MMO and not make the bosses bosses? What the hell?
入れていかなきゃいけなかったのは
I can't believe
やっ
this.
ぱりイフリートやそのガルーダ、いわゆる召喚獣って一般的に呼ばれているものとのボスバトルを入れていかなきゃいけないと思ったし、チョコボに乗れないなんて MMO なのに
Yes.
話にならないからチョコボにちゃんと乗れるようにしなきゃいけないし、何よりジョブがないのも FF じゃない。少なくとも僕は FF だと思わないので、だったらジョブをちゃんと入れていこうっていうところが、でもそれもやっぱりさっき言ったようにインターフェースとバトルシステムが治ってなければいいものにはならないので、まあだから回収をやりながらきちんと仕様を作ってそれを一つずつクリアしていくっていうのを中盤以降は続けて、そこからやっぱりグッドゲームの評判は
Oh, this is a good
良
game.
くなっていって、プレイヤーもずっと増え続けていったので少しずつですけど、 あれは僕らもすごい
And that's in
励まされ
one
ました
point,
やっぱ
whatever
ちゃんと
patch they were
作っ
on.
ていけばみんなプレイをしてくれるっていう
That's great.
数字の上からもよく見えたので当時の7つ一気にリリースされた7つのジョブパッチナンバーは忘れちゃったけど7つのジョブがいっぺんに実装されたんですけどたった一人のゲームデザイナーが作ったんで
What?
The team had their sights set on what needed to be changed.
Okay. One guy did the 7 jobs they added. Because everyone else was working on 2.0, I'm assuming. Jesus. That's crazy.
The team had their sights set on what needed to be changed and how they were going to do it. For the first time in years, they were feeling hopeful, and even better, players were finally starting to respond with positivity. But right as they were settling into this new reality and finding their rhythm, disaster struck.
Of course it did.
For 6 minutes, Japan shook. A 9.0 earthquake had
Oh.
struck 200 miles northeast of Tokyo, and a resulting tsunami devastated
Yep.
coastal regions. What followed was a humanitarian and infrastructural disaster that can be barely comprehended. While the country rallied to help those affected,
Yeah.
Tokyo suffered aftershocks and frequent electrical blackouts. I asked Yoshida-san if he'd like to share how this had affected the team.
まあ東京もそうは言ってもすごい揺れたのでやっぱりまあ当日はね会社に泊まった方が安全だって言って帰らないでずっとニュースを見てるっていう人たちもいたしやっぱり東北に家族とかね親戚とかいるスタッフも当然いたのでまあもう正直言うともう開発どころではなかったのは確かにそうですね、で開発なんか優先すべきじゃないと思うのでやっぱりみんな開発者の前に人な
I
ので
cannot imagine hearing this from anyone I've worked for.
まあ日本中電力が足りなくなっていたのでまあ本当に些細なのかもしれないけどサーバーを全部落とそうけど
When the pandemic started, we were like asking our boss if we could have some of us working from home because, you know, that was a fairly decent idea at the time, and a lot of us were doing stuff that could have been done like remotely. And he was like, "No, why do you need to do that?" And I'm like, "I have a dad who has been diagnosed with cancer twice, living in my house. I don't want to leave the house unnecessarily, you know? It's not the weirdest thing to be like, hey, since people are dropping like flies and he's in the risk group of this, my job can be done remotely." Like, but they look at you as if you're kids, you know? And they're like, no. We've had no mandate from the state to do that, so why would we? You're gonna keep working as per usual. No changes. The walk-in shop will stay open. It's like, huh? Like nothing was done at my workplace to adapt to what was happening. All he did was not order new products from China because they are closed and won't be shipping. Which, like, yes, they were closed, but if you put in an order, they probably would have shipped it when they opened up. Thing is, he didn't put in an order for 1.5 years, and the company went under. Wonder how that happened. So it's, yeah, what a time to be alive. So hearing Yoshi P say all these things, I'm like, I before being a developer, they are human beings. I could never imagine hearing my boss say that. My boss was happy to be at home during pandemic, but not me and my colleague. We had to put ourselves at risk every day. Yep. If you'll be home, you'll slack off like I'm doing. Exactly. They know what they're doing at home. So they're like, if they are allowed to stay at home, they will do what I'm doing right now. But it's like, he wasn't at work, so I was probably slacking off more at my place of work than I would have been if I had worked remotely. Because at that point, I'm like, yeah, I'm in this office, and my boss is like forcing us to be here, putting everyone we know and love at risk. So it's like, how do I feel motivated to do anything? But if I get like to work from home, I'm like, okay, I can take a 5-minute break, get something to drink, take care of myself, and just work out of the comfort of my own home. It's like the fact is that there's so many statistics from the pandemic that shows that it's actually effective, but there are so many companies that like have so much money invested in actual corporate buildings that they're like, we're shutting down the stay-at-home mandate, like everybody come back to the office because we're losing a lot of money. Just have all these buildings come back. It's so dumb, but like that, this is, yeah, respect. Goddamn Yoshi P. Respect.
まあ日本中電力が足りなくなっていたので、まあ本当に些細なのかもしれないけど、サーバーを全部落とそう、まあ少しでも協力できることがあればっていうことで。
You know how the US, the Western audience would have responded? How dare they shut down the servers? I'm off work. To some degree, I can relate, but like, they're doing this for a good reason. Once it, okay.
エオルゼアの中でその遠くにいる友達の無事が確認できた。
That's cool.
エオルゼアがあったから電話も通じない、その連絡の手段がなかった。
That's really cool.
エオルゼアの中にログインしてきてくれたことで、その無事だったっていうのが分かった。逆にその周りの人たちの情報っていうのも分かったっていうお話をいくつかいただいて。まあ電力が足りなければね、当然そのサーバーなんて落とせばいいかなと思うんですけど、そうじゃない限りは続けるっていうことも、そのエオルゼアを維持しておくっていうことも一つのなんかこうサポートなのかなって思った機会でもありましたね、その時は。だから続けてくれてありがとうって言われたんですよ。
That's actually something I never would have even considered. That's kind of
開発で、まあ、
That's really cool.
最も大きかったのは実はイフリートの次に戦うボスはリヴァイアさんの予定で、リヴァイアさんをかなりの速度で作ってたんですけど、とてもじゃないけどリリースなんかできないっていう話で、だからイフリートの後モーグリが実装されているのはそれが理由ですね。急いでモーグリを作り直したというか企画し直したので。
I think that's the order they happen in 2.0 as well.
ことはなかったですよ。みんなやっぱりそれぞれのその時期まあ会社に来れない人たちもまあ何日か会社も休みにしてるんで。ただどっちかっていうとその自分たちにできることをやろうっていうみんな感じだった。そうじゃあ全員で福島に行って何か僕らが活動することって意味があるのか、あれだけたくさんの人たちが押しかけてる中でだったら僕らはそのなんだろう、彼らが落ち着いた時にゲームを楽しく遊べるように僕らは結局ゲーム作るしか脳がないので、まあ、ゲームを作り続けるのが結局何よりなのかもっていう、こういう話はしなかったですけどみんなそういう感じで復帰してきてましたよ、仕事に。
Damn.
Over the coming months, the team would release patch after patch for 1.0. 1.17 introduced 8-player parties and more stable network infrastructure.
Nice.
1.18 dropped in June 2011 and was a huge patch that made the game much more playable. Level caps lowered for story quests. It added grand companies, class adjustments, instance dungeons, and auto attack. Yes, would you believe this game still didn't have auto attack? It featured a more user-friendly map interface and also scrapped the controversial fatigue system.
And so we need to take this concept that Yoshi-san has created, make it fit with the current world, write stories around it, make the transition seem seamless, and then in the new world, make it so that there's still some connection with that old world that will be understood by those core players, but won't alienate new players. It won't be something like, oh, you didn't play that old, the stuff in 1.0, so you're going to be completely lost, because we don't want to do that either. We want to get new players to come that didn't play the original one, and we don't want to have them have to play the original to understand this one.
You can't anymore.
So trying to work the story that way was, it was challenging, but it was a lot of fun. We got to try a lot of things. We had a lot of freedom, then especially on the 1.x stuff, because in a sense, it would only be released, seen for a few months, and then it would be gone forever.
Yeah.
And so, on one hand, that's really exciting because we can do whatever we want. We can create these crazy stories.
That's where Hildy comes from.
Characters, all of these crazy situations.
Oh,
and
this
go,
actually, this storyline happened in 1.x whatever patch. That's really cool.
Balls to the wall. But on the other hand, we're working day and night on something that only a few thousand people are going to see and will be gone in 6 months.
Yeah.
I
then
really
we'll tell you
think
about
when we
it
look back at now,
in a few
I think we did a lot of the
expansions.
best work during that one point. And it's sad that no one is ever going to see that. Maybe, there's some videos up on YouTube where people can still go back and check them out.
And I want to watch the MSQ from 1.0. I want to take, I think it's an hour and a half. I want to take some time aside to do that someday after I've finished Endwalker and just see the story of 1.0, because what is this game?
Some of the best stories, some of the most crazy stuff went on during that 1.x period because it was pretty much no holds barred. Anything can happen. We had like crazy cults, and you had like people from the Garlean Empire. There was like propaganda, giant dragons and machines, and it was just anything goes in a type of situation there, and it was just really a lot of fun.
1.19 signified the
Chocobos.
1-year anniversary. Players finally got personal chocobos, and in the distance, one light in the night sky burnt slightly brighter, a sign of things to come.
At the very first time,
Surely
it was
it's not
just,
important.
Some rumor between players. Oh, is it getting bigger? No, I don't think so.
This was also when Square Enix announced that an entirely new version of the game had been in development since January, and that current players would receive copies of it for free. They also announced that players' character data and progress would be transferred to this new version, what they were then calling version 2.0. A roadmap for patches was outlined, and it was announced that monthly fees would be reinstated as of January 2012. As an incentive for players to keep playing while the fees were introduced, they announced Legacy Campaign, which rewarded players who paid for at least 3 months of service with permanently reduced monthly fees. Those players would also get an exclusive Chocobo mount, while as a thank you for their support during the redevelopment, their names would be featured in the credits of the new game.
で2011年10月14日にそのレルムリボーンっていう14を全く新しいゲームとして作り直してますっていう発表を同時にすることでこのままアップデートしていくんじゃないの？一体どうなるのこの先？楽しかったですよ。
1.2 was the final
I
patch
love
of
being
2011.
unhinged.
It saw all the servers renamed, while the moon Dalamud now seemed larger in the sky.
Oh.
1.21 came in March 2012, introducing a new job system and 2 new dungeons. 1.22 followed in April. Dalamud grew closer, and now some players are beginning to have nightmares. Ominous dreams greet players who log into the game while at an inn. The community all the while trying to figure this out.
Damn.
Is the moon going to destroy the world? Then how
That's
will
the guy
player
from
data be
Coils,
saved in
I think.
2.0? They wouldn't have to wait long for answers. That summer, a trailer revealed that 2.0 would be titled A Realm Reborn.
Hell
and
yeah.
Yoshida-san conducted numerous interviews explaining the future of the game and the features players can expect. On September 12, kickoff 2012, the final patch for 1.0 was released. The game updates to 1.23b, and with it comes an enormous Dalamud, its mechanical outer shell now in full view. The players now realizing that this world didn't have long left. On November 1st, 2012, a final in-game battle began. Square Enix made entry free for the final week of the game, while a haunting song can be heard playing on the wind across the entire realm.
It to
while
me.
The server struggled to deal with the load, players got together with their friends one last time, as the development team in Japan spammed enemies outside capital cities.
I thought they were
One
going to
group
play
of players outside of
Answers.
Golda has become legendary, attempting to protect the city with what we now call the Great Gobu Wall.
Hold!
Right before Dalamud hit Elzir, we had to do some chaotic situation to the existing world. So what we decided to do is to spawn the strong enemies at the near the main cities. Even when I popped the very strong, Manticore or the mobile or the giant monsters, players kill instantly. Instantly. Yeah, just snap. So, oh Jesus! So you killed my monster again. So what we can do is just keep spawning the lots of monsters. And then
Hell yeah!
in very late night, when I was doing, keep spawning the monsters. The one programmer I've never talked to him before, but just coming down to my desk and then just give me a bit of paper with some numbers, which numbers I can understand. This is the number of the certain monster.
Okay.
I can type in so that I can spawn a very new, stronger monsters. Oh, thank you very much. So
this is more effective.
You're like,
go get him,
God.
kid.
At first, I felt like God. Hey, players, can you beat my monsters? But no. I was very weak God.
They were God.
Yeah, they were God.
They were God.
So it was then, on Sunday, November 11th, 2012, just over a year after Final Fantasy XIV was originally launched, with Dalamud hanging in the sky, that the servers were finally turned off. And as they did, a trailer dropped, showing players what was to become of their old home.
That's sick. Away with you to 2.0. Gandalf had to eat our sins. Poor bastard.
Well, it's pretty simple. You had something that not a lot of people liked, and everyone wanted to forget about it. So rather than, just taking that and doing it over, and just reimagining it, why not destroy that and start over? If we leave too much of that original core there, then it will just linger on as that kind of cancer that, will always bring us back to that failure. Why not just clean the slate? But on the other hand, and this is where, things kind of got complicated, is that, no matter how bad the reviews were and how many people bought the game but then left the game, there was still this core of players in both Japan and, Europe, North America, that were passionate about the game. In the state that it was, they were passionate about the game. They were passionate about the series and their characters that they had created and were now living in this MMO. And so, it would have been easy to just say, okay, bye guys.
Yeah.
But if you do that, then you've basically alienated the only group that stuck with you, for all of those years. When everyone else is slamming the game and talking about how bad it is, those guys were troopers. They would go on the forums. They were defending, the development team when a lot of times we didn't deserve defending. So that idea to wipe the slate clean, but not make it something completely new, make it something that was
the power interest
connected in some way to that, to the old game. The decision made by Yoshida-san to, okay, let's bring down Dalamud, destroy the planet, destroy the realm, but then bring it back. Figuring out a way to make that happen within the current story. Make it feel natural. Make it feel like that was always the plan, was the biggest challenge, I think.
The team at Square Enix had worked themselves to the bone, not only recreating Final Fantasy XIV in A Realm Reborn, but also by dedicating time and money to ensuring that 1.0 players felt part of that story. The moon, Dalamud, had crashed into the world of Eorzea. That world was gone forever. And only one question remained. What was going to rise out of its ashes?
That's a Phoenix joke! How apt! If you have to close service, this is probably the best way possible to do it. Absolutely. I cannot imagine a better way to do it. Yoshi P is crazy. That's kind of all I have to say about it, you know? He's crazy. I can't believe they pulled this off. And I love the fact that they're like recognizing the people that stuck with the game. They're putting them in the credits for A Realm Reborn. They're giving them like a unique mount that's not available to anyone else. And just, you know, give them a nice, simple way of thank you just for sticking by us during such a shit time. Someone stole the jukebox. What is happening? It's like the 20th Century Fox thing. Yeah, everything was against them. But goddamn. Impressive as hell. It's weird to think about, but these devs seem so human. They feel relatable. They feel real. And I think that's why, like, you're watching this and you're like, I want them to succeed. Because you feel for them. You're like, goddamn, what a shit situation. I hope you all, like, deliver one hell of a game on the other side of this, because, like you said, everything was going against them. Damn. Part 3. Last part. The New World. We have subs. Let's go. I don't know why it defaults to 480p. Oh.
Hello and welcome to the final part of our fantastical tale. We sit on the eve of the rebirth of Square Enix's New World. Almost exactly 3 years after the original catastrophic launch, Eorzea was going to be getting a second chance. But this time, everybody knew it wasn't going to be getting a third.
This is it, Rock. You gotta deliver on this one. The New World.
Once Dalamud had struck, Yoshida-san moved the 1.x patch team into the main team working on A Realm Reborn, taking lessons from contemporary MMOs, feedback from players over the 1.x phase, and elements that worked from the original version. They crafted a modern Final Fantasy XIV set in a vibrant world that reflected the energy of the franchise.
It has
and
the
for
score
Yoshida-san and some other members of the team, this was going to be a very public thing, as they took the short train ride from the office in Shinjuku to Shibuya to take part in a very special launch event.
その渋谷のイベントへ向かうために朝電車に乗ってた。で少しリハーサルを当然やらなきゃいけないので、少し早めに家を出て、いよいよ発売日かって思いながらその電車に乗っていたら、ちょうどそのドアの近くに立ってたんですよ。そしたらそのドアの僕は右側に立ってたんだけど、左側に立っていた男の子、多分大学生ぐらいだと思うんだけど、身なりの綺麗な男の子がすっと僕のところに寄ってきて、小声で「 吉田さんですよね。
ん
本当に発売おめでとうございますって、プレイヤーですって言われたんです
That's
よ。
great.
で、そんな状況でまあそのイベントを始めて、
Oh, please tell me this is going
まあ
where
みん
I'm
なで
thinking.
そのまあここまで来る話をまあステージでしていて、最後まあマイクが当たってきて話をしようとしたら、その朝そう言われたことをちょっと思い出しちゃって、いやいろいろあったなって思ったら、言葉に詰まっちゃった瞬間にその来てたプレイヤーたち、お客さんたちがこう頑張れって言われちゃって、もう
I thought it was gonna see him in the crowd and point him out, but
昨日もちょっと話したように
This is more real.
MMO って発売してもそれがゴールじゃないスタートなので、なんかあんまり干渉に浸ってる暇なんて本来ないんだけど、思わずこうプレイヤーにこう頑張れって言われたせいで泣けてきちゃって、
nothing to be embarrassed about, dude. It's what makes people like you.
いこうと思います。
The fact that you're
ありがとうございま
human.
す。そしてこれからもどうぞよろしくお願いします。
Almost 3 years after its original launch, A Realm Reborn was released on PC, PS3 on August 27th, 2013. Behind the scenes, Square Enix had suffered a disastrous 2013 fiscal year, resulting in a loss of around 10 billion yen, which is around $105 million at the time. They couldn't afford another failure. Oh boy. So no pressure then. IGN!
Final Fantasy XIV, A Realm Reborn is a great MMORPG experience on both PC and PlayStation 3. Grounded in tradition and learning from the lessons of the games that preceded it, it thrives on the strengths of its excitingly varied and flexible class system and highly mobile combat.
The game's rough launch is mostly over, but you still might have to contend with login errors. But this is, by and large, a very good massively multiplayer game filled with lots of stuff to do,
Hell yeah.
gorgeous vistas to behold,
Crystal Mommy.
and lots of adorable narrative touches.
The challenge ahead for Square is to achieve the delicate balance of questing, dungeons, and fates for the second half of the leveling process, as well as it has the first. But considering the stunning reversal of fortune that Square has achieved here, it seems like anything is possible.
So what was it like then on your
Look
end
at that happy boy.
after, you know, years of working on this game, having the launch, basically being required to work on two separate games at the same time, patching one and then building an entirely new one, almost in secret for a large part of it, to then see, like, what was it like reading reviews and reading message boards when people were like, oh fuck, they did it?
It was, yeah, I mean, we were just as surprised. I mean, not as surprised because again, it was definitely different. You know, in those months before releasing the original, I mean, I knew that the game wasn't in good shape, and so it's kind of, you're lying to yourself, trying to say, no, this is gonna be good, they're gonna like this part, they're gonna like this part, it's gonna be okay, it's gonna be okay. But with A Realm Reborn, playing it's like, this is a really good game.
Yeah.
I mean, you're playing it, like, enjoying it. You know, but there's still that little bit in the back of your mind that's like, you know, and it's what we were told, is that once the game has been reviewed, even if you try to rebuild it, everyone's going to remember the old. They're not going to look at the new. And Metacritic never forgets. When 14 came out, the original, and it was maybe people were like, okay, I think, you know, I'm a hardcore offline Final Fantasy guy, but I'll try out this new one. But then, okay, it's terrible. See, I knew it. It's terrible.
Exactly.
They're not going to want to come back for a second time. It's like, no, I already played that. It was terrible. And so there was just this feeling that even if it's a really great game, no one's going to play it. They're just going to like brush it off because it's the bad Final Fantasy Online that I tried, you know, in beta and it sucked, so I'm not going to play it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we were afraid of that. But then, wow, it was just, I mean, servers breaking on, not breaking, but like servers getting so packed with people in those first few days, and then seeing the reviews come in, and you know, they saved, and then they start saying things like, you know, you saved the franchise and you saved the series.
Goddamn.
And
that's gotta feel so good after
remembering what it was
like 2 years,
at their launch of 1.0, and then just being able to, because who gets to re-experience a bad launch? It's something you don't get in the game industry,
and especially in MMOs.
And we did, and it was a great experience to be able to say, it was just that vindication of like all of that extra work that we had put in. It was what Yoshida-san had promised us. If we worked hard and we did this right, that in a year and a half's time, we can do this. And a lot of people didn't believe him, and a normal person probably wouldn't believe it.
Yeah.
But I mean, maybe that's why we were able to do it, because all of the abnormals remained and made something that was, literally impossible happen.
Incredible.
やっぱりサーバーがあまりにも混雑して遊べない、せっかくパッケージをお金を出して買ってきたのに、
That's ridiculous.
ゲームが遊べないとは何事だオンラインゲームだから当然サーバーに繋がらないと遊べないので、なんか評価とか以前の問題で買ってもらったのに遊べない状況を作ってること自体。
This is also the same people that were like, during Christmas, they were like, there are too many of you buying the game for Christmas. Stop. They didn't allow people to register more accounts for like a month. It was crazy. They were like, stop giving us money. There's too many of you. Calm down. That was, of course, years after this, but
あんなに来るとはもちろん思ってなかったっていうのも要因ですけど、だから評価云々の前にまずちゃんとゲームに接続して遊べるようにしなきゃっていうことばっかりが当時の1ヶ月半ぐらい出荷を停止したりとか。
Oh, they did that back then as well?
それしか全然覚えてないです。
With most other genres, this would be the part of the story where we fade to black and roll credits. But such luxuries don't exist in the world of massively multiplayer online
I can hear
games.
the song.
In fact, after the release of A Realm Reborn, or 2.0 as they call it internally, the team applied the same content-rich patching schedule they had undertaken with 1.0, releasing a significant 2.x patch to the game every 3 to 4
Introducing
months.
the rogue, yeah.
Over the next 2 years, these patches progressed the story of ARR, added in epic raids and new modes such as 72-player PvP battles.
Coils.
But just like before, while the team was working on these 2.x patches, they were concurrently building an updated version of the game, the first expansion pack.
Yeah!
2014年の10月9月10月ぐらいかな、開発チームにも吉田さん申請したら楽になるって言ってませんでしたっけ
I lied.
MMO これだけ巨大な規模の MMO は最初のエクスパンションパック出すところまでがスタートダッシュなんだよって言ってごめんねって。
Well, I mean, it was,
what
was in our minds was, not having another letdown. Don't take for granted that the rebuild was a success. We can't just expect our users to say, oh, they're going to release expansion, so we can do whatever we want, and doesn't matter, they'll buy it, ha ha ha. There was none of that sense. One good thing that came out of the failed launch is that it's instilled into, the developers, all of the developers' minds that, we have to always strive to be better. We can't, let our guard down. It's in everyone's mind, and it's always lurking back there, and we don't want to repeat that. And because of that, everyone is like always on the top of their game.
Is that still there even now? Because it's been 3.5 years.
Well, I mean, yeah, the old guard, yes, we all have that. We all have that. But it's not all the old guard anymore. People have moved off onto other projects. Some people have left the company to go freelance, explore new opportunities. A lot of new people have come in. And so a lot of people, don't remember, what happened in 1.0 because they weren't
summer
there.
Children.
That's right, exactly. And us old timers can tell them, well, back in my day, we did, and they'll be like, yeah, okay, whatever. And sometimes it does feel like that. There's always the chance that you can just get too full of yourself and not do 100%, not learn from your mistakes, and that, you know, the community was like, no, we're done. And, you know, we were lucky to be given a second chance. We were really lucky to have that second chance actually succeed. I don't know, third time, I don't know if I want to, you know, press my luck any further. It's not a good, fun situation to be in. The things that I've learned over these past 7-8 years working on 11
what the hell is that?
And the expansions is something that I'm going to carry with me to all future projects, as it will with, I mean, all of the other devs that have done that. A piece of that Final Fantasy XIV 1.0, a piece of that, you know, ARR and the expansions will be with all of them, and you know, hopefully they'll be able to use that in all their future projects.
Heavensward was another win for the team. Critically praised and loved by the community, it helped push cumulative subscriptions for the game beyond 5 million.
God damn.
In fact, the amount of players in Eorzea has kept rising.
当然上がり下がりはあります。上がり下がりをしながら少しずつ右へ上がっていくっていうのが、まあ、あんまり他の MMO ではない曲線なのかもしれないですけど、とにかくゲームデザインでずっとこのファイナルファンタジー14というゲームをプレイし続けていなければついていけなくなるとか、
That is a lot of freedom
一度やめて
bucks.
しまったら戻れないっていうふうに絶対にならないようにっていうのが14のゲームデザインの根幹にある。なぜなら今本当にみんな忙しい。一つのゲームだけになんだろう、毎日ログインし続けられるわけじゃない。それはもともと MMO が大好きな僕ですらそうなので、そう考えた時に遊びたい時に遊んで、メジャーアップデートが来たら一気に遊んで、少し落ち着いて他のゲームを遊んだり、
One of the best parts about the game.
家族サービスをしたり、でまた
The fact that he understands this.
それでいいと思ってるし、これからの MMO はそうじゃないと多分やっていけない。でやっぱり大きくゲーム1本分の新しい体験が来た時、全員集合して最新のファイナルファンタジーをプレイしてもらいたい。だからそれが基本ベースにあるので、やっぱりそのパッチの間で上がり下がりはする。ただ評判を聞いてずっと増え続けていくっていうのが理想だと思ってるし、14はそれでやれてきてるので、ただもっともっと遊んでほしい、たくさんの人にと思ってるのでチャレンジをまだまだ続けたいとは思ってます。
The latest expansion pack, Stormblood, comes hot on the heels of 2 years worth of 3.x patches, which have added fresh storylines and features
So
to
this is when
Heavensward. With it
Stormblood
comes
was about
increased
to
level
come out.
caps, new dungeons, jobs, raids, zones, and some changes to the battle system. Stormblood will also mark the end of the game's lifetime on the PlayStation 3.
Oh,
But
yeah.
of course, in the intervening years, the team has since launched the game on the PlayStation 4. Final Fantasy XIV had been a financial disaster for Square Enix. Subscriptions were turned off for most of the 1.x era, and the company poured significant funds and trust into the team tasked with its rebirth. The importance of this franchise to the company is mirrored by its importance to its players and, of course, the development team. This is a group of people who have dedicated years into ensuring that this game came back from the dead. Yoshida-san says he only needs about 4 hours sleep a night. I asked him about his social life. He says he doesn't really remember anything except work. He speaks fondly of those players that stuck with the team, those warriors of light that were saved at the end of 1.0. His respect for fans of this game and all Final Fantasy fans is clear to see. The realm of Eorzea is totally different now. A bustling, vibrant place full of stories, quests, and adventurers. A world expanded upon even more with the release of Stormblood. But the old world, the story of 1.0, the fall of Dalamud, and the people who survived the cataclysm will always live on. Those who were there, be them player or developer, will forever be bound together by that experience.
Instead of a lot of games will create, you know, these myths for their games, we have a myth that actually happened.
Yeah.
But because it happened so long ago and only a few people saw it, most of the new players now, they look at back and it's like, did it really happen? What is this battle with the White Raven on Riven Road? And it was just this grand battle, you know, all different levels and this, you know, dimensional rifts, and it sounds like an actual myth, but it's like, it's not just a story we made up for this, you know, it's actually happened. And you know, as the game progresses and new players come on, I mean, it's further and further back in history that this really cool thing happened. And so, I mean, that visual works cutscene, I mean,
Yeah.
I remember, watching it and just like, goosebumps all over. I mean, I'm watching with all of these other, like the directors and producers and, the director of the visual works, and we're all sitting there and they're all watching it, and I'm just watching them like I've got like tear in my eyes. Yeah, it's dust. And I mean, it was that powerful because it kind of encompassed not only, what the character went through, it was an image of what we as developers had done as well. At the beginning, we're all, let's do this. It's going to be an adventure. We're like that first cutscene where, with the party that goes out and they have their guild leave and they go out and they fight the Morble, and that's us at the beginning. And then the release hits you and you're down. I mean, then you have that cutscene where it's just like everyone's working together to make something new, and then it failed, but no, it didn't fail. And you're just, and all of the memories of the past years, the good and the bad, kind of all come together.
Yeah.
And just so overwhelming. And that's pretty much the reaction then when we finally released it to the public that we got. I mean, so many people. I just remember the forums, checking out the forums that day. I mean, people were just like, I've been in tears all day. I've watched it 10 times, and to see that, that everyone felt the same way. It wasn't just the development team. It's that you have this hardcore group of very, very loyal fans that they believed in the game. We believed in the game. We stuck together. We were able to build this new thing that's not just for us, but it's opening up the doors for a whole new audience. But remember, we were there first. We're the ones that that stood by it, and we're the ones that did this. And they have the pride in that. Those players, those warriors of light that were the before Meteor guys. Yoshida-san in interviews will always talk about those people that supported us, and we couldn't have done it. I mean, it sounds so cliche. Oh, we couldn't have done it without your support. Literally, we could not have done it. Literally, we could not have done it. I mean, if those people hadn't remained, we just would like, no, let's forget it. We're not going to do it. We wouldn't have put as much effort in. It would have just been, okay, yeah, whatever. Let's just free to play.
Back when 1.0 came out, and could you have imagined that 3-4 years later you'd be in a fan event with thousands of people in Germany?
Probably not, right?
No, I don't really.
Look at Yoshi P.
That. Yeah, I mean, one day, yeah,
oh,
we
what
were,
a dork.
I mean, always
love him.
Saying one day we want to run a big fun event. We were, actually dreaming to have a huge fun festival in the future at that time. But actually, yeah, we made it. So yeah, that was really great.
Some dreams come true.
Yes, yes.
ただ自分スクエア長いんですけれども、あんまり変な言い方ですけど、こう会社に対して帰属意識というか、なんかそこはあまりなくてですね。やっぱりゲーム作るって誰と一緒に作るかがすごく大切で、そこが一番重要だなと思っているんで、今回のプロジェクトは本当に組んでみたいというスタッフと組んですごく大きなことがやれて、すごい楽しかったし楽しいですねって感じではい。
That's great.
まあ強調したいことがあるとすれば、その初日に 1.0 の話をしてましたけど、誰か一人もしくはデベロップメントチームがということではなくて、やっぱり今でも本当に会社自体の大きな過ちが全ての悪い部分がファイナルファンタジー14で出てしまったっていう、まあそれはリリースって意味のデータではなくて、それが全て爆発したのがファイナルファンタジー14のオリジナルバージョンだったんじゃないかって本当に強く思ってるので、でも今まあ14のリバンプを会社全体としてやって、
Yeah, that came 15.
スクエニは少しずつ変わってきたと思ってるし、もっと変わらなきゃいけないと思ってる。もしかすると少し安心してる人たちも今いるのかもしれないけど、まだまだ変わらなきゃいけないと思ってるので、なんかそのあたりがうまく伝わってるといいなとは思います。これは なんだろう、スクエアエニックスっていう会社が作るゲームに期待してもらってる人が世界中にたくさんいると思うんですけど、僕もそうだったから、でもまだまだスクエアエニックスってこのレベルじゃないじゃん、もっと上いけるじゃんって思ってくれてるはずなので、そのためにはもっと変わらなきゃいけないし、チャレンジもしなきゃいけないと思ってるので、そういった要素も今回のそのお話でうまく伝わってくれると嬉しいかなとは思います。僕らはそういうつもりでやってますっていうメッセージが少しでもね出ていけばいいなとは。プレイヤーの皆さんと会社が望めばそうなってると思いますし、プレイヤーの皆さんや会社が他のゲームを作れって望んでくれれば他のゲーム作ってるかもしれないですし、両方一緒に同時にやってるかもしれないし。
If I have to do both projects at once, that happened.
スタッフで自分の会社なわけではないので、やっぱプレイヤーの皆さん、ファンの皆さんがスクエアエニックスに何を期待するのかっていうのを会社がどう考えるかだと僕は思ってるんで、まあ、もちろん自分で作ってみたいゲームがないわけじゃもちろんないですけど、まあ、好きなものを作りたいならね、会社辞めて自分で会社作って作れば。
As long as I'm wanted, I'll give it my best.
まあ望まれる
You're gonna be working for a long time.
頑張ろうと思いますけど、ただそろそろね、プロデューサーとディレクターのどっちかは誰かやってくれないかなって。
No, work yourself to the bone. You're doing great. Stay forever, please.
The death and rebirth of Final Fantasy XIV Online is a cautionary tale in corporate hubris. It's a story about the power of humility, respect, and unity. A fun story for those of us who knew nothing about it, cherished times for those who were fortunate enough to be there when it all happened, and a wonderful reminder of something we come across so often in life, the idea that reality can often be even more amazing than the fantasy.
That's it. I think. Yeah. Oh, and they play this. Beautiful. That was great. Shout out to Danny O'Dwyer and Noclip for that. That was great. Shout out to Square, like the Square people who actually agreed to be interviewed. That was great. It puts the whole game in a completely different light, and I think it's very important to watch this. Honestly. It gives such a clear image of what they all went through to make this happen, to make it real. And I don't know what else to say besides I wish Soken was interviewed. What an incredible group of people, man. Oh, but this might have been fairly close to when he got sick, though, right? Because if he was writing the Shadowbringers music while in the hospital, and Stormblood was about to come out, there's some potential overlap there, so that might be one reason why he's not in here. That's just speculation, though, and I probably shouldn't think too much more on that, honestly. Yeah, that was great. That was so good. That was so good. I don't know what else to say. I'm so happy I watched that. That was sick. It's just so much they went through that you don't really have any clue about if you're just playing the game. But it's so important to where everything is now. All the things they went through. It's honestly really impressive. Now, when this started, I was like, this guy, it's such a mild-mannered, nice boy. And I will not tolerate any slander regarding this sweet boy. But I also said that you've heard him somewhere before. Like, he's the main translator. He came up with the term "thalls balls," for example. A lot of that stuff. Like, he's the guy that makes us laugh every time something funny happens in the game. But then he's also been doing something on the side. So I'm gonna go to this scene. And then I'm gonna show you where you have heard him before. That's him. That's him. He's the guy singing and jumping in a white tie and a hat. He sings a bunch of the primal music in this game. He's just out here having fun with Soken. Like, I don't really have any words. But this is what he's doing. I'm gonna let them finish the chorus. Like, it's... Would you ever expect this sweet innocent boy to be the guy singing, hyping you up during the Alexander fight and a bunch of other fights, Titan, and for example, and just a bunch of the music. He's the guy singing or rapping. Like, oh, that's surprising. And I read a few days ago that the guy who sings... Let's see if I can pull this up. I'm gonna first pull up the video and then see if it's actually true before we... What's the song called? The song that played in 5.3. What's it called? A Long Fall. That's the one. A Long Fall. No, that's the meme song? Yeah, that's the twinning theme. Never mind. It's To the Edge. That's what it's called. There we go. Okay, To the Edge. Music video. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm just gonna double check if this information is actually correct before we talk about this. Okay. Okay, yeah, it is him. Okay, good. Yeah. So there's this guy called Jason Miller, right? He once upon a time, there was a guy called Jason Miller. He's still called Jason Miller, but once upon a time, he played a character called Raubon in A Realm Reborn. But then he was replaced, just like so many others, when Heavensward came out. Now, what is Jason Miller doing these days? Well, he's still involved with Final Fantasy XIV. He's right here. He's right here. This is the first Raubon voice. Now, when I found this out, shocked, to say the least. Like, I would never expect Raubon to come back and sing. But it's kind of cool. He's also performed this live with them at multiple fan fests. Or multiple, at least one that I know of in Europe. I think the one in the US during the pandemic was him pre-recorded on a big screen. But yeah. Yeah, that's Raubon. OG Raubon. So weird. But so cool at the same time. It's just neat. Very cool. So yeah, that's the documentary. Now, let's do 5.4. It's gonna boot up the game. And while that's happening, I'm gonna answer some messages. Okay. There we go.